The moment Lena Carter saw Viktor Dragunov's eyes, cold, calculating, utterly merciless, she knew every assumption she'd made was catastrophically wrong. This wasn't some decrepit old man she could charm or deceive. This was a predator in his prime, and she was already caught. "You'll carry my child within 6 months," he said, his accent turning the promise into a death sentence. "Your father's debts die with your obedience." 20 years old, an ocean from home, surrounded by armed men, in a country where she didn't speak the language. Lena's ordinary life had just ended, and her nightmare was only beginning. If you're hooked, stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from, so I can see how far Lena's journey travels. The gallery opening had been perfect, almost offensively so. String lights casting warm amber across exposed brick, the scent of expensive wine and cheaper ambition, Lena's charcoal portraits finally getting the attention they deserved from people who mattered. She'd worn the black dress her roommate insisted made her look dangerous in a good way, and for 3 precious hours, she'd felt like someone who belonged in rooms like this. She should have known better. Her phone buzzed 7 times before she checked it. All from Dad. That alone sent ice through her chest. Her father never called anymore, not since the divorce, not since he'd chosen poker tables and loan sharks over parenting. The 8th call came as she stood on the gallery steps, cold November air cutting through her coat. "Lena," his voice cracked. "Baby girl, I need you to listen very carefully." "Dad, I'm at an exhibition. My exhibition. Can this—" "They're coming for you." The words tumbled out fast, desperate. I fucked up so bad, and they said if I don't deliver you by midnight, they'll—" A sound she'd never heard from her father before. A sob. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. The money was supposed to—" "What the hell are you talking about?" Lena's hand tightened around her phone. Around them, gallery patrons laughed, oblivious. "Who's coming?" "Russians. Ukrainians. I don't fucking know anymore." Her father's breathing came in sharp bursts. "Viktor Dragunov. That's the name they kept saying. He owns my debt now, and he doesn't want money, Lena. He wants—" The black sedan pulled up so smoothly she almost didn't notice. 2 men emerged, moving with the kind of precision that screamed military training. Dark suits, darker expressions, and eyes that found her instantly in the small crowd. "Dad?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Dad, there are men. Don't run." Her father's voice broke completely. "Please don't run. They said if you run, they'll make it worse. Just go with them. Maybe he just wants to scare me. Maybe—" "Miss Carter." The accent was thick, Eastern European, the consonants hard enough to cut. The taller man stood 3 feet away, hands visible, unthreatening, except everything about him threatened. "Please come with us. Mr. Dragunov is waiting." Lena's art professor stood nearby, wine glass frozen halfway to his lips. "Lena, do you know these men?" Did she run? Did she scream? 18 years of self-defense classes her mother had insisted on said fight, but the shorter man's jacket hung open just enough to reveal the shoulder holster, and his eyes promised he wouldn't hesitate. "It's fine." The lie tasted like copper. "Family thing." "Your phone, Miss Carter." The tall one extended his hand. "Please." She looked at the device still pressed to her ear, her father's ragged breathing the only sound she could focus on. "Dad!" "I'm sorry." He was crying openly now. "I'm so goddamn sorry." The phone disappeared into the man's pocket. Then his hand, gentle, almost courteous, guided her elbow toward the sedan. The back door opened. Interior leather, tinted windows, and a third man behind the wheel who didn't even glance back. "If you scream," the tall one said conversationally as he slid in beside her, "we will sedate you. The flight is long. Better you stay conscious, yes? Less frightening." "Flight?" Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. "Where—" "Mr. Dragunov will explain." He buckled her seatbelt like she was a child. "Sit still. Behave. This goes easier." The gallery lights receded through the rear window. Her professor stood on the steps, phone already out, probably calling. Who? Campus security? The police? And what would she even tell them? That she'd been politely kidnapped by men who hadn't technically threatened her, whose employers she'd never heard of because of debts she didn't know existed. The sedan merged into traffic. Boston's November darkness swallowed them whole. "I'm a student." Lena forced the words past the panic squeezing her throat. "I don't have money. Whatever my father owes is not about money." The tall one, she mentally labeled him Sergei because he looked like a Sergei, pulled out a tablet. "Your father, he borrow very much, $200,000 for gambling, for—" He waved dismissively. "Does not matter, he cannot pay. Normal situation, we take his business, his house, his car. But your father?" A cold smile. "He has nothing worth taking, nothing except you." The tablet screen illuminated his face. A document, official-looking, dense with legal language she couldn't parse at this speed. But certain words jumped out. Marriage contract, heir production, term, indefinite. "That's insane." Her laugh came out broken. "You can't just, people don't—" "In your country, no." Sergei swiped to another page. "In Mr. Dragunov's world. Different rules. Your father, he understand this when he borrow from Bratva. When you borrow from Brotherhood, you pay. Always. One way or another." The shorter man, built like a concrete block with dead eyes, spoke for the first time. "You paint, yes? We see your gallery. Very nice." His English was worse, slower. "Maybe Mr. Dragunov let you paint. He appreciate beauty." "Let me?" Lena's hands clenched in her lap. "You're talking about me like I'm a fucking pet." "Pet? No." Sergei shook his head. "Wife. Important distinction. Pet has no rights. Wife of Viktor Dragunov?" He made an expansive gesture. "You will have everything. Clothes, jewels, security, best doctors, best food. You make him son you want for nothing rest of your life. And if I refuse?" She already knew the answer, but she needed to hear it. "Cannot refuse." Sergei's tone remained pleasant, conversational. "This is not negotiation. Your father already signed papers. You are 20 years old, adult, but debt is transferred. You come willingly or you come sedated. You marry willingly or you marry drugged. You conceive willingly." He let that hang in the air like poison. "Better you understand now. Easier for everyone." The airport was private, corporate. No TSA, no crowds, just a sleek jet waiting on the tarmac with its stairs already deployed. Lena's legs felt disconnected from her body as Sergei guided her across the asphalt, the November wind cutting through her gallery dress like it was made of tissue paper. "I need to call someone." Her voice cracked. "My roommate will think you left exhibition early. We already sent text from your phone." Sergei showed her the screen. "Got sick, heading home." "Don't wait up," complete with the stupid flower emoji she always used. "Your professor also received message. You have family emergency. Leave school for semester. Very sad, but necessary." They'd thought of everything, every escape route closed before she'd even known she needed one. The jet's interior was obscene. Cream leather, polished wood, a bar that probably cost more than her entire year's tuition. A woman in a crisp uniform stood waiting, her smile professional and empty. "Miss Carter will need something for nerves," Sergei told her in Russian. Lena's 2 semesters of language study were enough to catch that much. But nothing too strong. "Mr. Dragunov wants her alert on arrival." "I don't want—" Lena started, but the flight attendant was already preparing something, her movements practiced. "Is just Valium." Sergei pressed the pill into her palm, followed by water in a crystal glass. 10-hour flight. You want to arrive screaming, shaking, or calm, ready to meet your husband with dignity. Husband. The word felt like a noose. She took the pill. Not because she wanted to, but because the alternative, 10 hours of full panic, trapped at 30,000 feet with men who'd abducted her, seemed worse. The flight attendant's smile never wavered as Lena swallowed. "Good girl," Sergei said, and the condescension in those 2 words made her want to vomit. The jet lifted off smoothly. Boston disappeared beneath clouds, and with it, everything Lena had known. Her apartment with its paint-stained floors, her studio space at the university, the coffee shop where she worked weekends, the ordinary, beautiful, safe life she'd built for herself despite her father's implosion. Gone. The Valium hit her system like warm honey, dulling the sharp edges of terror into something more manageable. Sergei reclined his seat, closed his eyes. The concrete block scrolled through his phone with thick fingers, and Lena stared out the window at darkness, trying to remember everything she knew about Viktor Dragunov, which was nothing. The name meant nothing to her. How old is he? The word slurred slightly. This Dragunov. Sergei didn't open his eyes. 36. Not the ancient, dying oligarch she desperately hoped for. 36. Young enough to have decades of control ahead of him. Old enough to be established, powerful, untouchable. Why me? The question came out small. I'm nobody. If he's so powerful, he could have anyone. He could. Sergei's mouth curved. But transaction must balance. Your father owed debt. Debt must be paid. You are payment. Simple mathematics. I'm a person. Yes, person who now belonged to Viktor Dragunov. He finally opened his eyes, and for the first time, something almost like pity crossed his face. You think this is worst thing that happened in world? You think you first woman married for debt, for alliance, for... He searched for the word. For purpose beyond love? This is old story, Miss Carter. Oldest story. You just modern chapter. The Valium pulled her down into something that wasn't quite sleep, wasn't quite consciousness. She dreamed in fragments, her father's voice breaking over the phone, the gallery lights receding, her own charcoal portrait staring at her with hollow eyes, judging her for walking into that sedan without fighting, without screaming, without... Turbulence jerked her awake. The cabin lights were dimmed. Sergei snored softly across the aisle. Outside the window, dawn light cut across clouds that stretched forever, and Lena realized she didn't even know what country she was flying toward. The flight attendant appeared with coffee, black and bitter. We land in 40 minutes, Miss Carter. There are clothes in the bathroom. Mr. Dragunov sent your measurements ahead. Please change before arrival. Measurements. He already knew her measurements. The violation of it made her hands shake as she took the coffee. The bathroom was larger than her college dorm room had been. The clothes waiting, designer labels she recognized from magazines, sizes that fit perfectly, felt like a tailor-made cage. Silk blouse, tailored pants, leather boots that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She caught her reflection in the mirror. Pale, hollow-eyed, her careful gallery makeup now smudged and ruined. She looked like a ghost. The descent began. Sergei woke, straightened his tie, became all business again. When you meet Mr. Dragunov, you show respect. You do not raise voice. You do not make scene. He is patient man, but patience has limits. Understand? Lena nodded, because what else could she do? The jet touched down smooth as butter. Through the window, she glimpsed mountains, snow-capped, massive, unfamiliar. Not American mountains. The architecture visible from the private terminal was all Eastern European elegance, cold and imposing. Where are we? Her voice came out hoarse. Home, Sergei said simply. You're home now. 3 more black sedans waited on the tarmac, men in suits, all cut from the same dangerous cloth. They surrounded her the moment she descended the stairs, not touching, but close enough that running was impossible. The morning air bit cold and sharp, so different from Boston's damp chill. The drive took 30 minutes through a city that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. If fairy tales included armed checkpoints and buildings that wore their Soviet past like scars. They climbed into hills where the architecture shifted, became older, grander. Estate walls topped with security cameras, gates that opened silently as they approached. And then, the house. Except house was too small a word. The estate sprawled across manicured grounds, all stone and severe elegance, windows that reflected the morning sun like watching eyes. The sedan stopped at marble steps. Sergei exited first, then offered his hand. Lena ignored it, climbing out on her own, her new boots clicking against stone. The front doors opened. A woman emerged first, 50s, steel-gray hair pulled back severely, wearing an expression that suggested she'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. She looked Lena over with the clinical assessment of someone appraising livestock. Adequate, she said in English. She'll need work, but adequate. Irina runs household, Sergei said. You do what she says, when she says? No exceptions. Irina's mouth twitched. Inside, Mr. Dragunov is waiting in his study. The interior was all dark wood and darker paintings, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself because it had existed for generations. Their footsteps echoed. Somewhere, classical music played, something Russian, melancholic, beautiful in a way that made Lena's chest ache. They stopped before double doors. Irina knocked twice, then opened them without waiting for response. The study was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace large enough to stand in, windows overlooking grounds that seemed to stretch for miles. And behind a desk that looked carved from a single piece of mahogany, backlit by morning sun that turned him into a silhouette. Viktor Dragunov. He stood as she entered. Not ancient, not frail, not any of the desperate fantasies she'd constructed during that endless flight. 36 looked like this. Over 6 feet of lean muscle and perfect tailoring, dark hair cut military short, a face that would have been handsome if it wasn't so utterly cold, sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, and eyes, those eyes. Pale gray, almost silver in the morning light, and completely devoid of mercy. He studied her the way someone might study a newly acquired painting, assessing value, checking for damage, deciding where it would hang. Miss Carter. His English was perfect, the accent just barely detectable. Welcome. Lena's voice stuck in her throat. This was real. This was actually happening. This man, this stranger, expected her to, I won't do it. The words burst out before she could stop them. Whatever arrangement you made with my father, I'm a person, I have rights. You can't just... I can. Victor's tone remained pleasant, conversational. He moved around the desk with a predator's grace, closing the distance between them. Your father signed contracts witnessed by lawyers in 3 countries. Debt transference, acknowledged and accepted. You became collateral the moment he put pen to paper. That's human trafficking. Lena's hands clenched. I'll go to the police. Police? Something that might have been amusement flickered in those gray eyes. In this country, Miss Carter, I am the police. The judges, the prosecutors, the politicians, all of them owe their positions to men like me. You think your American citizenship matters here? He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could see the flecks of darker gray in his irises. You have no embassy to run to. No consulate that will touch this. Your father already reported you missing in Boston, filed a police report, very distraught, very concerned. And here you are, in a country with no extradition treaty, married, or about to be, to a man whose money built half this city. The room tilted. You planned this. Of course. Victor returned to his desk, poured vodka from a crystal decanter. I plan everything. Your father's debt came to my attention 6 months ago. I researched his assets, found nothing of value except... He raised his glass toward her. A daughter, 20 years old, healthy, educated, beautiful enough. No serious relationships, no family beyond a divorced mother who moved to Arizona and barely speaks to you. Perfect. For what? The question came out broken. I'm 36. Victor drank, his throat working. I've built an empire that spans 4 countries and generates billions annually. I have everything a man could want, except a legacy. My enemies are waiting for me to show weakness, to make mistakes. A man without family is vulnerable. A man with wife, with heir. He set down the glass. Untouchable. So buy a wife who wants this. Lena's voice shook. There are women who would come willingly. Victor's smile was a razor. Yes. Hundreds. But willing wives have leverage, Miss Carter. Willing wives have families who expect influence, allies who want favors. Willing wives can divorce, can betray, can become liabilities. He moved toward her again, and this time she backed up until her shoulders hit the bookshelf. But you have nothing. No family that matters, no allies, no power. You are perfect precisely because you are powerless. The cruelty of it, the casual, calculated cruelty, stole her breath. You'll carry my child within 6 months. Victor's hand came up, and Lena flinched, but he only tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture almost tender. Medical examinations this afternoon will confirm your fertility. Legal contracts this evening will bind you. Wedding tomorrow, private ceremony, just witnesses. And then, his fingers trailed down her neck, not quite touching. You'll learn what it means to belong to me. I'll fight you. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Every day, every second, I'll fight? Victor's laugh was soft, genuinely amused. Oh, Malishka, I'm counting on it. Broken women bore me, but women with fire? His hand dropped. Women who fight and lose and fight again until they finally understand their place, those are the ones who produce strong children. He moved back to his desk, dismissing her with the gesture. Irina will show you to your rooms. You'll eat, rest, prepare for the doctor. Don't try to run. The estate is guarded, the gates locked, and the nearest city is 30 kilometers of mountain roads you'll freeze to death on within hours. Behave, and this goes smoothly. Resist. He met her eyes. And I will make you regret every moment you waste on futile rebellion. Mr. Dragunov, Irina said from the doorway, the contracts are ready for review. Excellent. Victor was already focused on the papers before him, Lena forgotten like a piece of furniture. Take her away. Irina's grip on Lena's elbow was iron. The hallway spun. Lena's legs barely held her as they climbed a staircase that seemed to spiral forever. First rule, Irina said, her accent thicker than Victor's. Never embarrass him publicly. Private resistance, he expect. Enjoy, even. But public defiance? She stopped before a door, unlocked it with an old-fashioned key. That brings punishment you do not want. The room beyond was a prison dressed as luxury. King bed draped in silk, windows overlooking the grounds. Locked windows, Lena realized. A door leading to a bathroom larger than her entire Boston apartment. Closets already filled with clothes in her size. Shoes lined up like soldiers. Lunch in 1 hour, doctor at 3. You will cooperate, or you will be sedated and examined anyway. Irina's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Make this easier on yourself, child. Men like Victor Dragunov do not lose. Ever. Only question is how much you suffer before accepting what you cannot change. The door closed. The lock turned. Lena stood in the center of all that expensive emptiness and finally let herself break. Sobs tore through her chest, violent and raw. She grabbed a crystal vase from the nightstand and hurled it at the wall, watched it shatter into 1,000 pieces that glittered like ice on the hardwood floor. No one came. No one cared. She was alone. She was trapped. And Victor Dragunov, cold-eyed, calculating, utterly merciless, owned her as surely as he owned the furniture, the walls, the very air she breathed. Her father had sold her. Not for love, not even for survival. For gambling debts, for his own weakness, for... The realization hit her like a physical blow. This was her life now, this beautiful, terrible cage. And the man who'd built it didn't need her love, didn't want her happiness. He wanted an heir and obedience, and he had all the time and power in the world to break her into exactly the shape he required. Lena slid down the wall, wrapped her arms around her knees, and stared at the locked door. 20 years old, and her life was already over. The doctor arrived precisely at 3, escorted by Irina and 2 guards who positioned themselves outside the door like sentries. Dr. Volkov was a woman in her 60s with surgical gloves already on, and an expression that suggested she'd performed this exact examination on countless unwilling girls before Lena. On the bed, she said in accented English. Remove clothing from waist down. Lena's hands shook. I want a different doctor, a woman I choose, not Mr. Dragunov's physicians are best in country. Dr. Volkov opened her medical bag with practiced efficiency. You want second opinion? You must first survive first opinion. Now undress, or guards do it for you. The humiliation of it burned through Lena's chest. She turned her back, stripped with trembling fingers, and lay on the bed staring at the ceiling while Dr. Volkov's cold hands violated every remaining shred of dignity she possessed. Blood drawn, samples taken, internal examination so clinical it felt like being processed at a veterinary clinic. Healthy, Dr. Volkov announced, snapping off her gloves. Fertile. No diseases, no complications. You make good babies. She pulled out a blister pack of pills. Birth control, you stop immediately. Prenatal vitamins, you start today. Alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, all forbidden. You want coffee? 1 cup morning only. I'm not taking those. Well, Lena sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. I'm not going to... You think you have choice? Dr. Volkov's laugh was harsh. Girl, I examined 5 women this month for Bratva marriages. All say no at first. All take pills eventually. Some take them willingly after understanding reality. Others, she shrugged. We crush pills in food, inject vitamins while sedated. Easier you cooperate. She left the pills on the nightstand like a threat. Lena stared at them after the doctor departed, after Irina locked her in again, after the sun began its descent toward the mountains, and the room filled with golden light that felt like mockery. The prenatal vitamins sat there, waiting. Lena grabbed the blister pack and hurled it across the room. Dinner arrived on a silver tray, roasted chicken, vegetables, bread still warm from the oven, and a small paper cup containing crushed vitamins mixed into what looked like applesauce. They weren't even pretending anymore. Lena ate everything except the applesauce, her stomach grateful despite her mind screaming that accepting their food meant accepting this reality. She was exploring the bathroom, marble everywhere, a tub large enough to swim in, toiletries and brands she recognized from magazine advertisements, when she heard the lock turn. Victor stood in the doorway, still in his suit but with his tie loosened, holding a leather folder. The contracts, he said, crossing to the desk by the window. Come sign. No, not a request. He opened the folder, revealing pages dense with legal text in 2 languages. These formalize our arrangement, marriage terms, financial provisions, custody agreements for future children. Your signature makes this legal in ways that protect us both. Lena stayed by the bathroom door. Protect us? You kidnapped me. I collected debt. Victor pulled out a pen. Expensive, heavy, the kind that signed important things. Your father's signature is already here. Yours goes beside it. Once married, you receive allowance of 50,000 American dollars monthly, access to all estate facilities, protection of my name and resources. In exchange, I become your breeding stock. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You become my wife, mother to my children, mistress of this household. There are women who would kill for such position. Then marry one of them. Lena's voice rose. Let me go. Find someone who actually wants this nightmare. Victor set down the pen with controlled precision. Do you know what happens to women in your situation who refuse cooperation, who fight every step, make themselves useless? He moved toward her, slow and deliberate. They disappear. Quietly. Their fathers receive condolence messages, tragic accident, so sorry for loss. And debt remains unpaid, transferred to next available family member. He stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and cold. Your mother in Arizona. She has small house, yes? Mortgage almost paid off? She would make poor collateral, too old for children, but his smile was a knife. Organs sell very well, kidneys especially. The floor dropped from under Lena's feet. You wouldn't. I would do whatever necessary to balance books. Victor's hand came up, gripped her chin, forced her to meet his eyes. You think I am a monster? Maybe. But I'm a monster who keeps promises. Sign contracts, behave, give me Heir. Your mother lives peaceful life in Arizona, never knowing what you sacrificed. Refuse? His thumb pressed against her lower lip. I have her address. Her routine. She walks same path every morning, yes? Coffee shop on corner, then home through park? Lena's breath came in short gasps. Please. Please. Victor released her, returned to the desk. Begging already? I thought you had more fight. He held out the pen. Sign. Or I make phone call, and by morning your mother learns what happens when Carter family does not pay debts. Her legs barely carried her to the desk. The contracts blurred through tears she refused to shed. Page after page of legalese that reduced her entire existence to property terms and breeding schedules. Her hand shook so badly the first signature came out illegible. Again. Victor guided her hand, his fingers warm against her cold skin. Legible this time. She signed and signed and signed. 13 pages, each one another lock on her cage. Good girl. Victor collected the contracts, slid them back into the folder. Wedding tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Irina has dress prepared. Priest comes from city, 2 witnesses, very simple ceremony. You will say vows without crying, without seeing. Understand? Lena nodded because speech was impossible. Then we consummate. His tone remained businesslike. I am not cruel man, Lena. I will not hurt you more than necessary. But this marriage must be legitimate in all ways, legal, physical, binding. He moved to the door, paused. Rest tonight. Tomorrow your old life ends completely, and new one begins. The lock turned. Lena collapsed into the chair he'd vacated, staring at the desk where she'd signed away everything. Her hands still trembled. Her mother's face swam before her eyes, oblivious in Arizona, walking to her coffee shop, completely unaware that her daughter's signature had just purchased her safety. The applesauce cup sat on the dinner tray. Crushed vitamins mixed in, preparing her body for pregnancy she didn't want, couldn't escape. Lena picked it up, stared at it, then swallowed every bite, the sweetness coating her throat like poison going down. She didn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet except for wind against the windows and occasional footsteps in the hallway beyond her locked door. Guards, probably, making sure the merchandise didn't damage itself before the transaction was complete. Dawn came gray and cold. Irina arrived with breakfast and the dress, white lace, traditional cut, beautiful in a way that made Lena want to vomit. It fit perfectly, of course. They'd measured her for this weeks ago, probably. Planned every detail while she'd been living her ordinary life in Boston, painting in her studio, drinking bad coffee, completely unaware that men in expensive suits were measuring her for a wedding dress she'd never choose. Hair up or down? Irina held pins between her teeth, already working Lena's dark hair into something elegant. Does it matter? Mr. Dragunov prefers down. Says women look younger, softer. Irina's hands moved efficiently. You want to please husband on wedding day, yes? He's not my husband. In 2 hours he is. Irina met her eyes in the mirror. You can make this hard, or you can survive. Your choice, but choose smart. The makeup came next, enough to hide the shadows under Lena's eyes, the pallor of sleepless terror, the trembling she couldn't quite control. Irina worked in silence, transforming her into something that looked almost bridal, almost willing. At 9:30, Victor's head of security, a man called Dmitri with scarred knuckles and dead eyes, came to escort her downstairs. The chapel was private, on the estate grounds, all stone and stained glass that caught the morning light. A priest waited at the altar, old and uncomfortable, his hands fidgeting with his vestments. 2 men in suits stood as witnesses, faces she didn't recognize, expressions carefully neutral. And Victor, waiting at the altar in a black suit that probably cost more than her entire education, looking like every girl's dream groom if you ignored the ice in his eyes and the guards positioned at every exit. Dmitri walked her down the aisle because she had no father, no family, no one who gave a damn that she was being sold like livestock. Her heels clicked against stone. The dress rustled. Somewhere, organ music played, something classical, beautiful, completely wrong for this travesty. Victor took her hand when she reached him. His grip was firm, warm, completely at odds with the calculating coldness in his gaze. The priest began in Russian, then switched to halting English for Lena's benefit. The words washed over her: sacrament, holy union, binding before heaven and earth, lies, all of it. There was nothing holy happening here. Do you, Viktor Mikhailovich Dragunov, take this woman? I do. No hesitation, no doubt. Victor's voice rang clear in the chapel, and Lena hated him for it, hated the certainty, the ownership already present in how he held her hand. And do you, Lena Marie Carter, take this man? Her throat closed. The priest waited. Victor's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly against hers, not quite pain, but a reminder. Her mother's face flashed before her eyes. The threat that hung over everything. The word stuck. I do. Then by power vested in me, the priest rushed through the rest like he wanted this over as quickly as she did. I pronounce you husband and wife. Victor kissed her. Not gently, not cruelly, but with clinical efficiency, a seal on a contract, nothing more. His lips were warm against hers, and Lena's entire body went rigid with revulsion. The witnesses applauded politely. The priest collected his payment and fled, and just like that, Lena Carter became Lena Dragunov, wife to a man she despised, property legally bound in ways even her father's debt hadn't accomplished. "Smile," Victor murmured against her ear. "Dmitri is taking photographs for records." She couldn't. Her face felt frozen, shattered into pieces she couldn't reassemble. But Victor's arm around her waist held her upright as cameras flashed, documenting this nightmare for whatever legal purposes required proof. The reception was worse. A formal lunch with Victor's inner circle, men who looked at her like they were assessing an investment, wives who wore their jewelry like armor and their smiles like weapons. Lena sat at Victor's right hand, pushed food around her plate, and tried not to scream as conversation flowed in Russian around her, occasionally dipping into English when someone addressed her directly. "You are artist, yes?" One of the wives, Katya, young and beautiful, and clearly terrified of her own husband, leaned across the table. "Victor says you paint." "I did." Lena's voice came out flat. "Before. Perhaps you continue here." Katya's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Good to have hobby. Keeps mind occupied." Occupied from what? From the reality that she was now trapped in a foreign country, married to a criminal, expected to produce children for a man who viewed her as livestock? Victor's hand found her knee under the table, squeezed once. Warning or comfort, she couldn't tell. Didn't care. She was drowning in expensive wine and polite conversation, and the knowledge that when this lunch ended, when the guests departed, she and Victor would be alone and the last pretense of civility would evaporate. The afternoon stretched endlessly. Finally, as the sun began its descent, the last guests departed. Irina cleared the dining room. Guards returned to their posts, and Victor stood, offered his hand. "Come." Lena's stomach dropped. "Where?" "My rooms." His expression remained neutral. "You are wife now. This is wedding night." "I can't." Her voice broke. "Please, I need more time." "No." Victor pulled her to her feet, not roughly but with absolute certainty. "Delaying makes nothing easier. Better we do this now, establish expectations." He led her through hallways she didn't recognize, upstairs to the east wing she hadn't yet seen. His suite occupied the entire top floor, sitting room, office, and bedroom that looked like something from a luxury hotel, all dark wood and masculine elegance. Lena stood just inside the doorway, her wedding dress suddenly feeling like a shroud. Victor poured vodka, drank it in one swallow, then turned to face her. "I am not monster you think I am," he said quietly. "I do not enjoy forcing women, but this marriage must be consummated, for legal reasons, for—" He stopped. "You understand necessity, yes?" "I understand you're going to rape me." The words came out hard, clear. "Call it whatever you want, but that's what this is." Something flickered in his eyes, anger maybe, or recognition of truth he didn't want to acknowledge. "Your father's debt? I don't give a damn about my father's debt." Lena's voice rose, cracked. "He's a gambling addict who sold his own daughter. You want to punish someone? Punish him. But I'm 20 years old, I had a life, I had dreams, and you took everything because you wanted a fucking broodmare who couldn't say no." The slap came so fast she didn't see it. Victor's hand across her face, not hard enough to really hurt, but shocking enough to silence her completely. She staggered back, hand flying to her cheek. "Do not compare yourself to animal." Victor's voice remained level, controlled. "You are my wife, mother of my future children. You will be treated with respect appropriate to that position. But respect flows both ways, Lena. I am your husband. You do not raise voice. You do not insult. You do not—" He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "I do not want to hurt you, but you must understand your place." Lena's cheek burned. Tears finally spilled over, hot and shameful. "I hate you." "Yes, I know." Victor closed the distance between them, and this time when he touched her, his hands were almost gentle. "But hate or not, we are bound now. Legal, permanent. You can make this war, fighting me every day, making us both miserable. Or you can accept what cannot change and find peace in your new life." "There's no peace in captivity." "No?" His fingers found the zipper of her dress, began pulling it down with slow deliberation. "I offer you wealth, security, protection. Life of luxury most women only dream of. Children who will want for nothing. In exchange, I ask obedience, Heir, and the dress pooled at her feet. Your body when I require it. Lena stood in her slip and heels, shaking, hating every second. Victor's eyes traveled over her. Not with lust exactly, but with that same assessing gaze from the study. Cataloging, evaluating, deciding. Bed, he said. Now. She couldn't move. Her legs refused orders. Victor sighed, lifted her, actually lifted her like she weighed nothing, and carried her to the massive bed. Set her down on sheets that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe back home. I will try to be gentle. He stripped off his jacket, began unbuttoning his shirt. But I make no promises. This is business, Lena. Transaction. The sooner you accept, the easier it becomes. What happened next was mechanical, efficient, and utterly devoid of anything resembling intimacy. Victor did exactly what he said, tried not to hurt her more than necessary, but made no concessions for her comfort, her terror, her complete unwillingness. He took what he'd paid for, what the contracts gave him legal right to, what her father's signature had promised. And when it was over, when he'd rolled away and lay staring at the ceiling with his breathing slowly returning to normal, Lena curled into herself and tried to find some piece of her soul that this hadn't touched. You will sleep here tonight. Victor's voice came from somewhere far away. Tomorrow, Irina begins your training, language lessons, combat training, etiquette for society functions. You will learn to be proper wife to man of my position. Lena didn't answer, couldn't. Lena, his hand found her shoulder. Answer me. Fine. The word came out broken. Whatever you want. Not what I want, what is necessary. He got up, pulled on a robe. I have work, sleep. Tomorrow begins early. He left through a connecting door to his office. Lena lay in the massive bed, in silk sheets that smelled like him, in a room that felt like a tomb, and wondered if it was possible to die from hopelessness alone. She didn't die. Hours passed. Eventually exhaustion claimed her, dragging her into sleep filled with nightmares of locked doors, and her father's voice breaking over the phone, and Victor's pale eyes promising that resistance was futile. When she woke, dawn light streamed through windows she hadn't noticed the night before. Victor was already gone. Only the rumpled sheets on his side of the bed proved he'd been there at all. A note sat on the nightstand. Breakfast at 8. Irina will collect you. Wear clothes she provides. Do not keep her waiting. V. Even his handwriting was controlled, precise, utterly without warmth. Lena showered in Victor's bathroom, scrubbing her skin until it hurt, trying to wash away the feeling of his hands, his weight, the clinical way She vomited into the toilet, heaving until nothing remained but bile and shaking. Irina arrived at 7:45. The clothes she brought were practical, fitted pants, sweater, boots designed for movement rather than appearance. Eat quickly, she said. Training begins 9 o'clock sharp. The breakfast was elaborate, more food than Lena could imagine eating. She managed tea and toast before Irina ushered her to a part of the estate she hadn't seen, a converted ballroom now serving as a training facility. Mats on the floor, weapons on the walls, and a man built like a tank waiting in the center. This is Alexei, Irina announced. Former Spetsnaz. He trains all Bratva wives in self-defense. Alexei looked Lena over with professional disinterest. You know how to make fist? I took self-defense in college. College? He spat the word like it tasted bad. Here, you learn real defense, not pretty moves for campus safety. Real combat. Someone grab you, you break fingers, someone attack, you go for eyes, throat, groin. No rules, no mercy. Understand? Lena nodded. Good. We start now. The next 3 hours were brutal. Alexei didn't care that she was exhausted, traumatized, barely holding herself together. He showed her holds, breaks, strikes, all of it practical, vicious, designed to inflict maximum damage. When she moved too slowly, he corrected roughly. When she hesitated, he demonstrated on her until she understood the consequences of weakness. By noon, Lena's entire body ached. But something else was happening too. A small, fierce spark of something that wasn't quite hope, but wasn't surrender either. These skills, this training, it was survival. And survival meant she wasn't dead yet. Language lessons came next. A woman named Olga, patient and thorough, drilling Lena in Russian basics. Greetings, common phrases, the words she'd need to navigate this new life. 3 hours of repetition until Lena's head pounded. Then etiquette. Irina herself handled this, demonstrating proper behavior for social functions Lena would be expected to attend as Victor's wife. How to stand, how to speak, what topics were acceptable and which would embarrass her husband. You represent him now, Irina said firmly. Your behavior reflects on his power, his control. You act like spoiled American girl. You make him look weak. Weak men do not survive in Bratva. The schedule was relentless. Training, language, etiquette, lunch eaten quickly between lessons, then more of the same until dinner. By the time Irina finally released her at 8, Lena could barely climb the stairs to Victor's suite. He was waiting in his sitting room, reviewing documents, looked up when she entered. How was first day? Lena collapsed onto the sofa, every muscle screaming. Your trainer's a sadist. Alexei is effective. Victor set aside his papers. In 6 months, you will thank him. Woman who cannot defend herself is liability. Woman who can fight. He almost smiled. Becomes asset. I'm not an asset. I'm a person. You are both. Victor poured vodka, offered her a glass. Drink. Helps with muscle pain. She took it, drank, felt the burn spread through her chest. They sat in silence, the quiet between them, not quite comfortable, but not entirely hostile either. Lena's mind churned with questions she didn't want to ask, observations she didn't want to make, like how Victor seemed genuinely pleased that she'd survived the training, or how his hands, when he examined a bruise forming on her forearm, Alexei had been rough during a demonstration, were surprisingly gentle. Why combat training? The question emerged before she could stop it. If I'm just here to have your children, why teach me to fight? Victor's expression shuddered. Because world is dangerous, especially for women connected to men like me. Enemies will target you to hurt me. Better you know how to survive until help arrives. You mean until your guards arrive? Yes. No apology in his tone. This is reality, Lena. You are target now. Training keeps you alive. She wanted to hate the logic. Couldn't quite manage it. Dinner arrived on trays, food she was beginning to recognize as standard for Victor's household. Rich, abundant, probably designed by nutritionists to optimize her fertility. The vitamins came with dessert, no longer hidden. Lena took them without comment, too exhausted to fight. Victor watched her. You did not cry today. What? During training, Olga said you were frustrated, angry, but you did not cry. Good. Tears are manipulation tool or sign of breaking. You are neither. Lena met his eyes. You want me to break? No. He leaned back, studying her. I want you to bend, to accept. Breaking is useless. Broken women cannot raise strong children, but accepting reality, learning to thrive within limits? He nodded slowly. That is what I need. The honesty of it was somehow worse than cruelty. He didn't want to destroy her. He wanted to reshape her into something useful, something that fit the role he'd designed. What if I can't? Lena asked quietly. What if I fight you until one of us dies? Victor considered this. Then you die, he said finally, and I find another woman to carry my children. But I think you stronger than that. I think you survive because survival is in your blood. American stubbornness, yes? Something that might have been respect flickered in his expression. Your country built on people who refuse to quit. This fight in you, this anger, I do not want to extinguish, I want to redirect. Into what? Partnership. Victor stood, moved to the window overlooking dark grounds. I do not need submissive doll, Lena. I need intelligent woman who understands power, who can stand beside me in public and manage household, who can raise children to be strong, cunning, capable. He turned back. You think I am a monster? Maybe true. But monsters need queens, not victims. The word hung between them. Queen. As if this were some fairy tale instead of a nightmare wrapped in expensive sheets. But as Lena climbed into bed that night, as Victor joined her and pulled her against his chest with the casual possessiveness of ownership, she found herself wondering if maybe, just maybe, there was a third option between breaking and dying. Not acceptance, not surrender, but adaptation, evolution. becoming something he didn't expect, couldn't fully control. Her hands, wrapped in Alexei's lesson bruises, curled into fists beneath the blankets. She wasn't broken yet. And if she was going to survive this, she needed to be smarter, stronger, more dangerous than Victor anticipated. The training would continue, the language lessons, the etiquette, the slow transformation into a proper Bratva wife. But underneath it all, Lena made herself a promise in the darkness. She would learn everything they taught her, master every skill, every weapon, every word. And someday, when Victor finally decided she was trustworthy enough, valuable enough, she would find a way out of this cage he'd built, or she would burn it down around them both. 3 months into the marriage, Lena could disarm a man twice her size and conduct basic conversations in Russian without Olga's patient corrections. The transformation should have felt like progress. Instead, it felt like watching herself disappear piece by piece, replaced by someone Victor could actually use. The morning sickness started on a Tuesday. Lena barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting up her breakfast, her hands shaking against the cold marble as her stomach turned inside out. When she emerged, pale and trembling, Irina was waiting with a knowing expression and a pregnancy test. "No," Lena said. "It's too soon. It's only been 3 months," Irina held out the test. "Long enough. Mr. Dragunov will want confirmation." The test came back positive, then another, then doctor. Volkov arrived with her cold hands and colder bedside manner, performing an ultrasound that confirmed what Lena already knew in her bones. 6 weeks pregnant, due in early spring. Victor's reaction was controlled satisfaction, a slight curve of his mouth, a possessive hand on her still flat stomach, and immediate orders to increase her security detail. No more training with Alexei until after the birth. Modified schedule, restricted access to certain parts of the estate, vitamin regimens that made Dr. Volkov's previous prescriptions look casual. "You are carrying Dragunov Heir now," Victor said that night, his hand still resting on her abdomen as they lay in bed. "Nothing matters more than protecting this child. Not our child, not even my child. This child." Like the baby was already separate from her, already his property before it even had a heartbeat she could hear. But the nausea made fighting impossible. Lena spent the next 2 weeks barely able to keep food down, exhausted by 10 in the morning, her body staging its own rebellion against the new reality taking root inside her. Victor hired a nurse, another stern woman named Natasha, who monitored Lena's vital signs like she was a particularly expensive piece of machinery that needed maintenance. The only reprieve came from an unexpected source. Victor's younger sister Katerina arrived from Moscow, a whirlwind of expensive perfume and genuine warmth that felt alien in the cold estate. She was 28, unmarried by choice, according to Irina's whispered gossip, and the only person who seemed to view Lena as something other than a walking incubator. "You look terrible," Katerina announced in perfect English, sweeping into Lena's sitting room without knocking. "Victor said you were ill, but I did not expect corpse." Lena managed a weak laugh from her position on the sofa. "Nice to meet you too?" "Katya. Only Victor calls me Katerina when he is angry." She settled into the chair across from Lena, crossing long legs. "So, brother finally produces heir. Whole family very excited. Very surprised he chose American girl, but..." She shrugged. "Victor always does unexpected things." "He didn't choose me. He bought me." Katya's expression shifted, something like sympathy flickering across her elegant features. "Yes, I know. He told me about your father's debt." She leaned forward. "I tell him this is barbaric, old-world thinking, but Victor..." Another shrug. "He believes in traditional solutions to modern problems. Debt must be paid. Family must continue. Love is, how you say, luxury he cannot afford." "Love?" Lena's laugh was bitter. "He doesn't even like me. I'm just..." "Incubator?" "Yes, I hear this word from Irina." Katya pulled out a cigarette, then remembered herself and put it away. "But you are wrong about Victor. He does not do things halfway. If he bothers to keep you healthy, comfortable, if he gives you training and education instead of locking you in room like pet..." She met Lena's eyes. "This means something. Maybe not love, but respect at least. Recognition of worth. Worth as a mother to his children." Worth is worth. Katya stood, moved to the window. I tell you secret about my brother. When he was 20, he had wife. Real wife, love match, Svetlana. Beautiful, kind, perfect for him. Her voice went flat. She died. Car bomb meant for Victor. He found her body himself. The information landed like a physical blow. Lena sat up straighter, nausea temporarily forgotten. He never mentions. Katya turned back. After Svetlana, Victor becomes what you see now. Cold, calculating, all business. He swears never to marry for love again, never to give enemies leverage through his heart. So when he needs heir, he chooses differently. Someone he cannot love. Someone who is transaction only. She tilted her head. Safer for everyone, he thinks. No emotions to weaponize. That's insane. That is survival in our world. Katya returned to her chair. But here's the thing. Victor forgets that transactions can become something else, that respect can grow into trust, trust into partnership. He thinks he controls this, controls you, but pregnancy changes everything. Baby makes you family, not just asset. Lena wanted to believe her, desperately wanted to think that the life growing inside her could somehow transform this nightmare into something bearable. But Victor's hand on her stomach had been possessive, not tender. His satisfaction had been about securing his legacy, not about becoming a father. Over the next 2 weeks, though, something did begin to shift. Victor started joining her for lunch instead of eating in his office, asking Natasha about her symptoms with what seemed like genuine concern. He brought her books in English when he noticed her struggling with Russian novels, commissioned a studio space in the East Wing, complete with natural light and proper ventilation for when she felt well enough to paint again. Why are you doing this? Lena asked one afternoon as Victor supervised the installation of professional easels and a cabinet full of art supplies she recognized from the expensive catalogs she used to drool over in college. You need occupation, he said simply. Boredom makes women depressed. Depression is bad for baby. So this is still just about... No. Victor cut her off, his jaw tight. Is about you. You are artist. Artist who cannot create becomes, he searched for the word, hollow. I do not want hollow wife. The admission caught her off guard. Before she could respond, Victor's phone buzzed. His expression changed instantly, something dangerous sliding behind his eyes. I must go, he said, already moving toward the door. Stay in suite. Do not leave until I return. What's happening? Business. The door closed behind him, the lock engaging automatically. Lena stood alone in her new studio, surrounded by supplies she'd once dreamed of owning, locked in like always. But through the windows, she could see increased activity on the grounds, guards moving with purpose, vehicles arriving, the kind of controlled urgency that suggested something serious was happening. She was standing at the window when the first explosion rattled the glass. The sound came from the south wall, a deep concussive boom that sent birds scattering from the trees and set off car alarms across the estate. Lena stumbled back from the window, heart hammering. Another explosion, closer this time. Then gunfire, rapid and sustained, the chatter of automatic weapons she recognized from movies but had never heard in real life. The door to her suite burst open. Not Victor, but Dmitri, the head of security, his face grim. Come, now! What's happening? Chechens. They breached south wall. He grabbed her arm, hauled her into the hallway where 4 more guards waited. Safe room, 3rd basement, move. They ran. Lena's pregnancy-weakened legs struggled to keep pace as Dmitri and his men rushed her through corridors she'd never seen, down stairs that descended into the estate's foundation. More gunfire above them now, closer, shouting in Russian and another language she didn't recognize. The metallic scent of smoke filtering through the ventilation. The safe room was exactly what it sounded like. Reinforced steel door, concrete walls, supplies for extended siege. Dmitri shoved Lena inside, positioned 2 guards at the entrance. You stay here. Do not open door for anyone except Mr. Dragunov or myself. Understand? Where's Victor? Fighting. Dmitri's expression was stone. This is professional hit, coordinated attack. They want him dead. His eyes dropped to her stomach. Maybe want you dead too. Eliminate heir before it is born. The door slammed shut. The lock engaged with a sound like a tomb ceiling. Lena was alone in the concrete box with emergency lights, bottled water, and the muffled sounds of violence happening somewhere above her head. She sank onto the bench against the wall, wrapped her arms around her stomach, and tried not to think about what was happening up there. Tried not to think about Victor, cold, controlled Victor who'd bought her like property, fighting for his life. Tried not to think about dying down here in this hole, her and the baby she hadn't wanted but now desperately needed to protect. Time became meaningless. The gunfire continued, sometimes loud, sometimes distant. Once, an explosion close enough to make dust rain from the ceiling. Lena's hands never left her stomach, as if she could shield the tiny cluster of cells inside her through sheer will. When the door finally opened, she'd lost track of how long she'd been down there. Hours, certainly. Maybe longer. Victor stood in the entrance, and for a second Lena didn't recognize him. Blood splattered his shirt and face, too much to all be his, though she could see a gash across his forearm still bleeding freely. His eyes were wild, feral, nothing like the controlled man she'd grown accustomed to. This was Victor stripped down to something raw and dangerous, still riding the adrenaline of violence. "You are hurt?" His hands were on her before she could answer, checking for injuries with a thoroughness that bordered on frantic. "They did not reach you?" "No, I'm fine. Dmitri got me down here before—" Lena grabbed his bleeding arm. "You need a doctor." "Later." But he swayed slightly, and Lena realized he was running on fumes, the crash coming hard after the fight. "They are all dead. 15 Chechens sent by Malik Bashir. Message," he said, "that I am not untouchable." Victor's laugh was harsh, empty. "So I send message back. His brother's head in box, delivered to his compound by morning." The casual brutality of it should have horrified her. Instead, Lena felt a strange, fierce satisfaction. These men had tried to kill her baby, had tried to murder her before she'd even had a chance to what? To escape? To decide if she wanted this child? But in that safe room, with gunfire overhead and nothing but her own heartbeat and the fragile pulse of new life inside her, Lena had discovered something terrifying. She did want this baby. Not because Victor demanded it, not because contracts required it, because it was hers. "Come." Victor's arm around her waist was the only thing keeping him upright. "We go to medical suite. Dr. Volkov checks you, checks baby. Then we deal with aftermath." The estate was a war zone. Bodies being removed, blood being scrubbed from marble, bullet holes in walls that had stood for 200 years. Victor's men moved with grim efficiency, cleaning up evidence, securing the perimeter. Katya stood in the main hall directing staff, her elegant dress splattered with what looked like blood. Whether hers or someone else's, Lena couldn't tell. "She fought?" Lena asked as Victor guided her past. Katya was Spetsnaz before she decided being fashion designer was more fun. Victor's mouth twitched. "She kills 3 men with kitchen knife while protecting staff. Very proud of her." Dr. Volkov was already waiting in the medical suite, her supplies laid out with typical efficiency. She examined Lena thoroughly while Victor sat in the corner being stitched up by another doctor, his eyes never leaving Lena's face. "Baby is fine, doctor," Volkov announced finally. "Heartbeat strong, no signs of distress. Mother's blood pressure elevated but expected given circumstances. Both will recover." The relief that crossed Victor's face was so naked, so genuine, that Lena felt something crack in her chest. This wasn't the calculating crime lord who'd bought her. This was a man who'd just fought through 15 attackers and was only now allowing himself to feel fear. Not for himself, but for her and the child she carried. "Thank you," he said quietly to Dr. Volkov. Then to Lena, "You need rest." "So do you." The words came out before she could stop them. "You look like death." "Yes, well," Victor stood with obvious effort. "Death and I are old friends. He does not frighten me." His hand found hers, squeezed once. "But thought of losing you, losing child." He stopped, jaw working. "That frightens me." They made it to his suite, barely. Victor collapsed onto the bed, still in his blood-stained clothes, exhausted beyond functioning. Lena should have gone to her own room, the suite across the hall that she technically still maintained despite spending every night in Victor's bed. Instead, she climbed in beside him, curled against his injured side carefully, and let herself feel something she'd been fighting for 3 months. Not love, not forgiveness for what he'd done, how he'd stolen her life, but partnership, maybe. Recognition that they were bound together now in ways that went beyond contracts and coercion, that this baby growing inside her had just become the most important thing to both of them, for different reasons maybe, but with equal ferocity. Victor's arm came around her, pulled her closer. "I should have protected you better," he murmured into her hair. "Should have anticipated Bashir would retaliate for—" He stopped. "This is my fault. You couldn't have known. It's my job to know." His hand found her stomach again, spread across the slight curve that was just beginning to show. "I bring you into this world, make you target. Your life was ordinary, safe. Now I'm learning to survive in a different kind of life." Lena placed her hand over his. "I didn't choose this, but—" She struggled for words. "But this baby chose both of us, I guess. And if Chechens are going to try to kill it, then we better damn well keep it alive." Victor's chest shook. Laughter, or something else, she couldn't tell. "You sound like Bratva wife, fierce, protective of family." "I sound like a mother." The word felt foreign in her mouth. "Which I guess I'm going to be, whether I planned it or not." They lay in silence, both too wired to sleep despite exhaustion. Outside, the sound of cleanup continued. Evidence disappearing, normalcy being restored with practiced efficiency. "Tell me about Svetlana," Lena said quietly. Victor went rigid. "Who told you, Katya?" "She thought I should know." Lena turned to face him. "That you had someone you loved, that you lost her." For a long moment, Victor said nothing. Then, "Svetlana was everything I am not. Kind, gentle, believed in goodness of people. She thought she could—" His voice roughened. "Could save me. Make me better man." His eyes found the ceiling. "Instead, I got her killed. Bomb meant for me, she was in my car. They found her—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I swore I would never again care for someone enough to give enemies that leverage." "So you bought someone you thought you couldn't care about?" "Yes." He met her eyes. "But I was wrong. Seeing you in danger tonight, knowing they might reach you, might hurt you and child—" His hand tightened on her stomach. "I discover I care very much. More than is smart. More than is safe." The admission hung between them, fragile and dangerous. Lena should have used it, weaponized his emerging feelings into leverage for freedom. Instead, she found herself threading her fingers through his. "I don't forgive you," she said clearly. "For taking my life, my choices, for forcing this. I know. But I'm not going to let our child grow up thinking its parents hate each other." Her voice steadied. "So we figure out how to make this work. Not for love, not even for us. For—" She pressed her hand harder against her stomach. "For whoever this turns out to be." Victor's expression was unreadable. Then he pulled her close, buried his face in her hair, and she felt his shoulders shake with something that might have been relief, or grief, or both. They fell asleep like that, two people bound by violence and biology, and a fragile, growing understanding that neither of them knew how to name. The days that followed were different. Victor increased security until the estate felt like a military compound, but he also gave Lena more freedom within its walls. The studio became her sanctuary, hours spent painting while Natasha monitored her vitals, and Katya visited with gossip and surprisingly good advice about navigating Bratva social circles. "You embarrassed Malik Bashir at Charity Gala last month," Katya said one afternoon, watching Lena work on a portrait. "You remember?" Lena paused mid-brushstroke. She did remember. Some oligarch had made a crude comment about American girls, and she'd responded in halting Russian with an insult Olga had taught her. The man's face had gone purple with rage before Victor stepped in. "That was Bashir?" "His cousin. Close enough." Katya lit a cigarette by the open window. "In our world, insult to family is insult to all. You humiliate him publicly, he must respond. Hence," she gestured vaguely at the repaired wall where bullets had torn through, "attack. So this is my fault? No. It's fault of men who think violence solves everything." Katya blew smoke into cold air. "But you must understand, as Victor's wife, your words carry his power. When you speak, people hear him. When you insult, You insult with weight of Dragunov name behind you. The responsibility of it was crushing. Every word measured, every action calculated. But something else too. Power, real power, in a world where she'd had none. Katya? Lena set down her brush. If you could leave, would you? Leave Bratva? Katya considered this. Where would I go? This is only world I know. Besides, she smiled, sad and knowing. Once you are in until death. Family does not release. Ever. Lena already knew this, but hearing it confirmed made the walls of her beautiful cage feel more solid. That evening, Victor hosted a dinner for his inner circle, a show of strength after the attack. Lena wore the dress Irina selected, diamonds that probably cost more than her parents' house, and stood at Victor's side greeting men who'd killed people and women who looked at her with either pity or envy. Your wife is very beautiful, one of the men said to Victor in Russian, and brave, I hear, did not panic during attack. Victor's hand found the small of Lena's back. She is strong, will raise strong children. Lena understood enough Russian now to catch the approval in the man's tone, the respect. She was being evaluated, appraised, accepted, or rejected based on her performance in a role she never auditioned for. The evening stretched endlessly. By the time the last guest departed, Lena's feet ached and exhaustion pulled at her bones. Victor dismissed the staff, poured himself vodka, and stood at the window overlooking grounds that had been a battlefield just days ago. You did well tonight, he said without turning. Dmitri said 3 of the wives commented that you are proper Bratva lady. This is high praise. I'm so honored. The sarcasm slipped out before Lena could stop it. Victor turned, one eyebrow raised. You mock, but this matters. Acceptance from other families means safety. For you, for child. I know. Lena kicked off her heels. Doesn't mean I have to like it. No. He crossed to her, began unpinning her elaborate hairstyle with surprising gentleness. But you do it anyway. This is, he searched for the word, maturity, growth. This is survival. Lena closed her eyes as his fingers worked through her hair. I'm doing what I have to do to keep us alive. Yes, same as me. Victor's hand stilled. You think I enjoy being monster? That I want to send heads in boxes, order deaths, live always watching for enemies? His hands fell away. This is survival for me too. If I show weakness, if I fail to respond to threats, we all die. You, me, child, Katya, everyone in household. Lena turned to face him. Then why do it? Why not leave? Victor laughed without humor. And go where? Do what? This is all I know, Lena. This is all I am. His hand came up, cupped her face. But you are different. You did not choose this. So I try to make Cage as comfortable as possible. Give you studio, give you freedom within walls, give you... He stopped. Partnership, maybe, if you want it. The offer hung between them. Not love, not freedom, but something else. A choice, limited and complicated, but a choice nonetheless. What does partnership look like? Lena asked carefully. You stop seeing yourself as prisoner. Start seeing yourself as partner in empire I build. You have input in decisions that affect household, affect our children. You attend functions not as decoration, but as representative with real power. He hesitated. You trust me to keep you safe, and I trust you to stand beside me. That's a lot of trust for a man who bought me. Yes, Victor's thumb traced her cheekbone. But 3 months ago, you would have run if given chance. Now, his eyes searched hers. Now you fight to protect what is ours. This tells me you are no longer looking for escape. You are looking for purpose, Lena finished quietly. Something that makes this bearable. Then let me give you purpose. Victor's hand dropped to her stomach. Not just as mother, as my partner, my equal in ways that matter. Lena wanted to say no, wanted to tell him that partnership required consent from the beginning, that you couldn't force someone into marriage and then offer equality like it erased the violation. But she was 4 months pregnant with nowhere to run, no allies outside these walls, no future that didn't involve Viktor Dragunov in some capacity. And the alternative to partnership was remaining powerless, reactive, forever at the mercy of his decisions. Okay, she heard herself say. Partnership. But that means you actually listen when I talk. Actually consider my opinions, not just pretend to care while making all decisions myself? Victor almost smiled. I am not that man. When I commit to something, I commit fully. He pulled her close, rested his forehead against hers. You want partnership? You have it. But this goes both ways, Lena. I trust you with real power. You use it wisely. You speak for me in public. You speak with my interests at heart. Agreed? It was a cage gilded with agency. A leash long enough to feel like freedom. But maybe that was the best she could hope for in a world where leaving meant death and staying meant learning to thrive in captivity. Agreed, Lena whispered. Victor kissed her then. Not the clinical kisses of obligation, but something deeper, more genuine. And Lena kissed back, her hands finding his hair, pulling him closer, because partnership required participation, and maybe, just maybe, she could learn to want the life she couldn't escape. The baby kicked for the first time that night as they lay tangled together, a flutter so faint Lena almost missed it. But Victor felt it too, his hand pressed against her stomach, and his expression transformed into something wondering and afraid and utterly human. Our child, he said softly. Really ours now. And Lena, looking at his face in the darkness, realized that somewhere in the past 4 months of captivity and coercion and calculated survival, she'd stopped thinking of the baby as just Victor's heir or her burden. It had become theirs. And that changed absolutely everything. The pregnancy transformed Victor in ways Lena hadn't anticipated. The man who'd orchestrated her kidnapping became obsessive about her health, her comfort, her safety, in a manner that went beyond protecting an investment. He interviewed 3 additional obstetricians before selecting Dr. Petrov, a soft-spoken woman from St. Petersburg who delivered half the Bratva babies in Eastern Europe. He had the nursery designed and redesigned 4 times, finally settling on soft greens and creams after Lena mentioned she wanted something gender-neutral and calming. You are creating palace for infant who cannot even see colors yet, Katya observed one afternoon, watching workers install custom shelving. This is not practical, brother. Our child deserves best. Victor examined the craftsmanship on a handmade crib that probably cost more than a car. Everything perfect, everything safe. Lena stood in the doorway of what would become their baby's room, one hand on her swollen belly. 7 months now, the weight of it changing how she moved, how she breathed, how she existed in the world. The kicks had grown stronger, insistent, a constant reminder that something entirely separate from her was growing inside, preparing to enter a world of armed guards and locked gates, and a father who sent severed heads as diplomatic messages. Victor. She waited until he looked at her. We need to talk about what happens after. After birth? He frowned. We hire best nanny, of course. Night nurse for first month so you can sleep. Dr. Petrov recommends woman named Anya who... No, I mean what happens to us, to this... Lena gestured between them. Partnership, you promised. Victor's expression shuddered slightly. He dismissed the workers with a gesture, waited until they'd gone before crossing to her. You doubt my word? I doubt that a baby crying at 3 a.m. and dirty diapers and all the reality of actual parenthood is going to fit into your controlled world as neatly as you think. Lena held her ground. You've been good these past months. Attentive, careful with me. But that's because I'm pregnant with your heir. What happens when I'm not pregnant anymore? When I'm just what? My wife? Mother of my child? Victor's hand found her face, tilted it up. You think this care is temporary? That I become monster again once baby is born? I think you're a man used to getting what he wants, and right now what you want is a healthy heir. Lena pulled back slightly. I need to know what happens when that's no longer your primary motivation. The hurt that flickered across Victor's face was genuine enough to make her chest ache. He turned away, moved to the window overlooking grounds where snow was beginning to fall, early for the season. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. I told you months ago, when I commit fully. You think pregnancy is the only thing that changed how I see you? He didn't look back. You learned Russian in 4 months. You hold your own at functions with men who terrify experienced Bratva wives. You paint portraits that—" He stopped, gestured vaguely. "That capture something true in people, something I did not know could be seen." Lena hadn't realized he'd been looking at her work. The portrait she'd started as therapy, capturing faces of the staff, the guards, even Katya, during her visits, had been private, or so she'd thought. "The one you did of Dmitri," Victor continued, "you showed not just soldier but man who is tired, who wants peace but knows he will die in violence. This is gift, Lena, to see people so clearly." He finally turned back. "And you see me clearly too, yes? You know what I am, but you stand beside me anyway. You carry our child. You build partnership I did not think was possible. Because I don't have a choice." "You always have choice." Victor's voice hardened slightly. "You could make my life nightmare, could poison staff against me, could raise child to hate me, could use every day as weapon. But you do not. You choose." He struggled for words. "You choose to make something good from something that started terrible. This is not just survival, Lena. This is grace." The word hung between them, too big and too fragile. Grace implied forgiveness she hadn't offered, redemption he hadn't earned. But maybe it also implied possibility, that something forced could transform into something chosen, given enough time and effort and desperate willingness to believe in second chances. "I'm scared," Lena admitted quietly. "Of childbirth, of being a mother, of this life you've built where violence is always just outside the door. I don't want our baby growing up thinking that's normal. Is not normal. Is necessary." Victor closed the distance between them, pulled her into his arms carefully, always careful now of her pregnant belly. "But I work to make it less necessary every day. Legitimate businesses, legal protections, alliances that do not require blood. For you, for child, I try to be better man. Trying isn't enough. I know." His hand found her stomach, spread across the curve where their child grew. "So I do more than try. I succeed. Already I moved 20% of operations into legal territory. Import-export licenses, proper permits, money laundered clean through legitimate investments. In 5 years, maybe 10, Dragunov name means businessman, not criminal." "That's a pretty dream." His goal. Victor's jaw set in the stubborn line she'd come to recognize. "For this child, I build empire that does not require them to become monster. They can choose university, art, business, whatever they want, not forced into Bratva like I was, like Katya was. They have option for different life." The sincerity in his voice made Lena's throat tight. This man who'd stolen her, coerced her, violated every right she'd possessed. He was trying to give their unborn child the choices he'd denied her. The irony was crushing and touching in equal measure. "Okay," she whispered against his chest. "Then we build it together. But Victor, if you go back on this, if you revert to the man who locked me in that room and told me I was property, I become man you cannot forgive, and partnership dies." He pressed his lips to her hair. "I understand stakes, Malishka. I will not fail you." The baby kicked hard enough that Victor felt it, his expression transforming into that wondering softness that appeared more and more frequently. "Strong," he murmured, "like mother. Or stubborn like father." Lena managed a smile. "We're doomed either way." The nursery was finished 3 weeks before her due date. Lena spent hours there, sitting in the rocking chair Victor had imported from Sweden, imagining what it would be like to hold her baby in this room, to feed it and soothe it and watch it grow into whatever person it chose to become. She was sitting there one afternoon when Irina found her, the older woman's face uncharacteristically soft. "You will be good, mother," Irina said, settling into the chair beside the crib. "I watch you these months. You have strength many women lack." "I don't feel strong. I feel terrified." "Same thing, often." Irina's hands folded in her lap. "I raised 3 sons in this life. All dead now, 1 in prison, 2 in ground. This is cost of Bratva. But you?" She met Lena's eyes. "You have Victor changing, becoming something less destructive. This is miracle, small miracle. Maybe your child escape cycle." Your sons, I'm sorry. Do not be. I knew what world I brought them into. Irina's expression hardened. But I tell you this so you understand. Children born to this life, they have target on back always. You must be vigilant, must teach them to be smart, careful. Love is not enough. Protection is not enough. They must learn to protect themselves. The weight of it settled over Lena like a shroud. She'd been so focused on the pregnancy, on surviving each day, that she hadn't fully processed what came after. Raising a child in this world, teaching them to navigate violence and politics, and the constant threat of enemies who would use them as leverage. How do I do this? The question came out broken. How do I raise a child knowing every day someone might try to hurt them? Same way all Bratva mothers do. Irina stood, moved to the window. You love them fiercely, you teach them to be fierce, and you pray they are fiercer than enemies who come. Nothing else you can do. That night, Lena woke to cramping, not painful exactly, but insistent. She lay in the darkness beside Victor's sleeping form, one hand on her stomach, feeling the tightening and releasing of muscles preparing for what was coming. False labor, probably. Dr. Petrov had warned her about Braxton Hicks' contractions, but something felt different, more purposeful. When her water broke 20 minutes later, soaking the expensive sheets, she knew this was real. Victor, she shook his shoulder. Victor, wake up, it's time. He came awake instantly, years of sleeping light in dangerous situations making him alert in seconds. Time? But you are not due for 3 more. Baby doesn't care about schedules. Another contraction hit, stronger this time. We need to call Dr. Petrov. The next 6 hours were a blur of pain and controlled chaos. Dr. Petrov arrived with her team, transforming the master suite into a delivery room with practiced efficiency. Victor refused to leave, despite Dr. Petrov's suggestion that fathers often preferred to wait elsewhere. She is my wife. This is my child. I stay. His hand gripped Lena's, and she was grateful for it as contractions came harder, faster, turning her world into cycles of pain and brief respites. You are doing well, doctor, Petrov said during one of those respites, checking Lena's progress with clinical efficiency. Baby is in good position. Few more hours, maybe. Few more hours? Lena's laugh came out half-sob. I can't do this for a few more hours. Yes, you can. Victor's other hand smoothed her sweat-soaked hair back. You're strongest person I know. You survived me. You survived Chechens. You survived this. Those didn't hurt like this. No? His smile was strained. You break my hand, I think you are wrong. She was breaking his hand, crushing it with each contraction, but he never complained, just stayed beside her, murmuring encouragement in Russian and English, being present in a way she'd never expected from him. When the pushing started, Lena understood why women screamed during childbirth. The pain was transcendent, all-consuming, worse than anything she'd ever experienced. But Dr. Petrov's calm voice guided her through it, and Victor's hand anchored her, and finally, after one last monumental effort that felt like it was tearing her apart, a baby's cry filled the room. Girl, Dr. Petrov announced, placing the squalling, blood-covered infant on Lena's chest. Healthy girl, good lungs, all fingers and toes. Lena stared down at the tiny face, scrunched and red and furious at being expelled into the cold world. Her daughter. She'd made another human being, grown it inside her body, brought it into existence through sheer biological determination. The magnitude of it was overwhelming. She is perfect, Victor's voice cracked. His hand hovered over the baby's head, trembling, like he was afraid to touch something so small and fragile. Lena, she is ours. Lena guided his hand down. Let him feel their daughter's soft hair, still wet from birth. She's ours. The baby, they hadn't even chosen a name yet, too superstitious to decide before she was safely born, wrapped one tiny fist around Victor's finger, and Lena watched her husband's face transform completely. All the hardness, all the calculated control, stripped away to reveal something raw and undefended. I will protect her, he said quietly, more to the baby than to Lena. From everything, from everyone. Nothing will hurt you, Malishka, I promise. Dr. Petrov cleared her throat gently. We must finish delivery, clean mother and baby. Father can stay, but please move to chair. The aftermath of birth was messy and uncomfortable, and nothing like movies suggested. But holding her daughter, clean now, wrapped in soft blankets, made everything else fade to background noise. The baby nursed with surprising determination, her tiny mouth working instinctively, and Lena felt the final walls around her heart crumble. This was why she'd stayed, why she'd stopped fighting. Not for Victor, not for partnership, not even for survival. For this. For the small, perfect life depending on her for everything. "What do we call her?" Victor asked from his position beside the bed, unable to look away from his daughter. They'd discussed names briefly. Victor wanted Russian names, Lena wanted English. They'd agreed to consider options that worked in both languages. But now, looking at the baby's serious expression as she nursed, Lena knew exactly what fit. "Sofia," she said. "Sofia in English. Sofia Dragunov." Sofia. Victor tested the name, his accent making it beautiful. Wisdom. Good name for girl who will need much wisdom to survive this world. His hand found Lena's face, tilted it toward him. "Thank you. For her, for everything. I know I do not deserve this, deserve you, but shut up." Lena kissed him, brief and exhausted. "Just be the father she deserves. That's all I ask. I will try." "Don't try. Do." His smile was crooked, vulnerable. "Yes, wife." The first weeks with Sofia were harder than anything Lena had endured. The sleep deprivation, the constant feeding, the crying that seemed to have no solution. It pushed her to edges she didn't know existed. But Victor surprised her again. He hired the night nurse like he'd promised, but he also insisted on taking shifts himself, walking their screaming daughter through the halls at 3 a.m. while Lena caught desperately needed sleep. She woke one night to find him gone, followed the sound of his voice to the nursery. Victor stood at the window with Sofia against his shoulder, speaking to her in soft Russian about the stars visible over the mountains, about the world she'd grow up in, about promises he was making to a 6-week-old who couldn't possibly understand. "I make this place safe for you," he murmured. "Clean money, legitimate power, so you do not have to choose between being good person and being strong. You can be both, Malishka. I build this for you." Lena's throat tightened. She slipped back to bed before he noticed her, but the image stayed with her. This dangerous man gentled completely by the small life in his arms. When Sofia was 2 months old, Victor called Lena to his office. She found him at his desk, documents spread before him, his expression serious. "I need to show you something." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Partnership means transparency, yes? So I show you what I am doing." The documents detailed the systematic transformation of his empire. Shell companies being dissolved, legitimate businesses being established, blood money being cleaned through increasingly legal channels, import licenses, manufacturing permits, real estate investments, all of it documented, tracked, audited. "I move 40% now," Victor said, watching her review the papers. "In 2 years, maybe 60%. 5 years, perhaps 80. Never 100, some things cannot be made legal. But enough that Sofia inherits business empire, not criminal organization. This is..." Lena struggled to process the scale of it. "This is what you meant, about building something different. Yes, for her, for you." His hand covered hers. "I promise to be better man. This is how I do it." But transformation came with cost. 3 months after Sofia's birth, Victor's second in command, a man named Yuri, who'd been with him for 15 years, attempted a coup. He'd seen Victor's pivot toward legitimacy as weakness, convinced others in the organization that the birth of Victor's daughter had made him soft. The confrontation happened in Victor's office while Lena nursed Sofia in their suite upstairs. She heard the gunshot, a single, sharp crack that made her heart stop. Dmitri appeared in her doorway seconds later. "Stay here, locked door. Do not open for anyone except Mr. Dragunov." "What happened? Is Victor..." "Handled." Dmitri's expression was grim. "But you stay locked until he comes. Understand?" She waited in terror, Sofia oblivious in her arms for what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes. When the door finally opened, Victor stood there with blood on his shirt, not his from the way he moved, and exhaustion carved into every line of his face. "Yuri is dead," he said flatly, "along with 3 men who sided with him. Dmitri is cleaning up. He crossed to her, looked down at Sophia sleeping peacefully. She did not hear. I don't think so. Lena's voice shook. Victor, what? Yuri thought I was weak. Thought fatherhood made me unable to do what is necessary. Victor's smile was cold, completely unlike the soft expression he wore with Sophia. I showed him he was wrong, showed them all. Message is clear now. I become legitimate for my daughter, but I am still dangerous to enemies. The duality of him was jarring. This man who walked screaming babies at 3 a.m. and also put bullets in men who challenged him. But Lena was beginning to understand that both versions were real, both necessary in the world they inhabited. What about the others? She asked. The ones who didn't side with Yuri. They watch me kill traitor and remember why they follow me in first place. Victor pulled off his blood-stained shirt, moved to wash his hands with methodical precision. Legitimate business does not mean I am weak. Just means I am strategic. They understand this now. Over the following months, Lena watched Victor execute his plan with the same ruthless efficiency he applied to everything. Meetings with lawyers, accountants, government officials who could be bought or convinced. The estate became a hub of activity as Victor systematically dismantled the criminal aspects of his empire and rebuilt them as legitimate enterprise. But legitimacy was slow, and old enemies didn't care about Victor's transformation. When Sophia was 6 months old, credible threats came from 3 different organizations testing whether new Father Victor was vulnerable. Each threat was answered with overwhelming force, not by Victor himself anymore, but by the security apparatus he'd built. Dmitri and his team handled problems before they reached the estate, before they got close to Sophia. This is what I mean about vigilance, Victor said one evening, showing Lena the security reports. Threats never stop. We just become better at anticipating them. Lena held Sophia closer, watching her daughter play with her own feet, completely unaware of the violence conducted in her name. How long until they stop seeing her as a target? Maybe never. Maybe when she is grown, when she proves she is not weakness but strength. Victor's hand found Sophia's head, smoothed down her dark hair. But by then, she will know how to protect herself. We will teach her. She's 6 months old. Yes. And in 17 years, she is adult woman in dangerous world. We start preparing now. The absoluteness of it should have terrified Lena. Instead, she found herself nodding, because Victor was right. In their world, preparation was survival. And she wanted Sophia to survive more than she wanted to pretend they lived in a safe, normal existence. That night, after Sophia was asleep in her crib, after the security reports were filed and the household settled into quiet, Lena found Victor in their bedroom staring at the ceiling. What are you thinking? She asked, climbing in beside him. That I am afraid. His voice was barely audible. Of failing. Of not being fast enough, smart enough, strong enough to keep you both safe. Of Sophia, growing up and hating me for the life I gave her. Lena rolled onto her side, studied his profile in the darkness. She won't hate you. Not if you keep showing up for her the way you have been. I try, but what if trying is not enough? What if... He stopped, swallowed hard. What if I am too broken to be good father? Then you'd already be failing, and you're not. Lena placed her hand on his chest, felt his heart beating steady beneath her palm. You're changing your entire empire for her. You walk her at 3 a.m. and sing Russian lullabies. You made Dmitri install 17 security cameras just in the nursery. That's not a broken father, Victor. That's a father who cares so much it's making you crazy. His hand covered hers. I never thought I would care like this. After Svetlana, I thought I had become too cold for this kind of love. But Sophia... His voice roughened. And you, both of you made me feel things I thought were dead. Good things? Terrifying things. He turned his head to look at her. Because now I have everything to lose. Before, I had empire. I had power, but nothing that mattered like this. Like you, like her. And enemies know this. They see father, husband, they see weakness. Or they see man with something worth fighting for. Lena moved closer. Someone who won't stop, won't give up, won't show mercy to anyone who threatens his family. That's not weakness, Victor. That's the most dangerous kind of strength. He pulled her against him, buried his face in her hair. They lay like that for a long time. Two people who'd started as captor and captive, who'd become partners through necessity and choice, who were now bound together by the small life sleeping in the next room. "I love you," Victor said into the darkness. "I know I have no right. I know I took everything from you, but I love you. And Sophia, more than empire, more than power, more than anything." Lena's breath caught. She'd known for months that something had shifted between them, that the partnership had transformed into something deeper. But hearing him say it, admitting it, made it real in a way she hadn't prepared for. "I don't know if I love you," she said honestly. "I don't know if what I feel is love or just survival instinct and shared parenthood and the weird intimacy of building a life together. But Victor," she pulled back enough to see his face, "I choose you. Every day I choose this. Choose us. Choose to believe you're becoming the man I can love. That has to count for something." His eyes searched hers. "It counts for everything." He kissed her then, and for the first time since their wedding night, Lena kissed back with full participation, full presence. Not because she had to, not because contracts demanded it, but because she wanted to. Because this complicated, dangerous man had proven he could change, could grow, could become someone worth choosing. They made love slowly, carefully, relearning each other's bodies after months focused on pregnancy and infant care. And afterwards, lying tangled together, Lena realized that somewhere in the past year, she'd stopped mourning her old life. Stopped grieving the future she'd lost. Because this strange, violent, tender life they'd built had become hers in a way that college and art galleries never could have been. She'd been forced into it, yes, but she'd claimed it, shaped it, made it something worth staying for. Sophia's cry from the nursery broke the moment. Victor started to rise, but Lena stopped him. "My turn," she said. "You took the last 3. She found her daughter awake and fussing, not quite crying, but working up to it. Lena lifted her from the crib, settled into the rocking chair, and began to nurse. Sophia latched on immediately, her small hands kneading Lena's skin, her dark eyes, Victor's eyes, staring up with that intense focus babies sometimes had. "Your father's an idiot," Lena murmured. "He thinks he doesn't deserve us, thinks he's too broken. But you and I know better, don't we?" She smoothed Sophia's dark hair. "We know he's trying, and maybe that's enough. Maybe trying and failing and getting up and trying again, maybe that's what love looks like in our family." Sophia didn't answer, of course, just nursed and stared and eventually drifted back to sleep in Lena's arms. But sitting there in the darkness, in the nursery Victor had built, in the estate that had been her prison and was slowly becoming her home, Lena felt something settle in her chest. Not quite happiness, not complete forgiveness for everything that had brought her here, but peace, maybe. Purpose. The beginning of something that looked almost like love. And for now, in this dangerous, beautiful life, that would have to be enough. Sophia turned 3 on a crisp March morning, and Lena woke to find their daughter already awake, bouncing on Victor's chest with the kind of relentless energy only toddlers possessed. "Mama, Papa says we have party, with cake and everything." Sophia's Russian was flawless, her English accented but clear. She switched between languages with the ease of children raised bilingual, sometimes mid-sentence. "Everything, huh?" Lena stretched, watched Victor's face, softer now than it had been 4 years ago. The harsh lines around his eyes replaced by crow's feet from actual smiling. "What does everything include?" "Ponies," Victor said solemnly. "And bouncy castle, and apparently 17 cousins I did not know existed until Katya made guest list." 18, Katya's voice called from the doorway. She swept in without knocking, as had become her habit. "Dimitri's daughter is finally old enough to attend. She is very excited to meet famous Sophia." Sophia scrambled off Victor's chest, launched herself at her aunt with a squeal of delight. Katya caught her easily, spinning her around while speaking rapid Russian that made Sophia giggle. Lena watched them, something warm and complicated settling in her chest. This life, this strange, violent, tender life, had become so thoroughly hers that she sometimes forgot it had started with kidnapping and coercion. Forgot that the man currently pulling on his robe and padding barefoot to order coffee had once slapped her for raising her voice, had forced her into marriage, had... but that Victor felt like a different person now. Or maybe Lena had changed enough that the same person looked different through her new eyes. The party was chaos in the best way. The estate grounds transformed into something from a children's fantasy. The bouncy castle Katya had insisted on, tables laden with food, and yes, actual ponies for rides around the garden. Sophia held court like the tiny princess she was, surrounded by cousins and children of Victor's business associates, all of them treating her with the careful deference afforded to Dragunov heir. "She's going to be impossible after this," Lena murmured to Victor as they watched Sophia demand another pony ride. "She's already impossible." Victor's arm slid around Lena's waist. "Gets it from mother. I was perfectly reasonable before you kidnapped me." "Were you?" He pressed a kiss to her temple. "I seem to remember American girl who threw crystal vase at wall and told me to go to hell in very creative Russian." "I didn't know creative Russian yet. That came later." "Yes. When you called Bashir's cousin anatomically improbable things at Charity Gala." Victor's smile was genuine, proud. Whole room went silent. "I thought I would have to kill half of them." "But you didn't." "No. Because you established yourself as woman who does not accept disrespect. After that, they treat you with fear and admiration. Better than just fear." Lena leaned into him, watched Sophia shriek with laughter as her pony trotted in circles. "Do you ever regret it, how we started?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that I hurt you, that I gave you no choice, but regret that we are here now, with her?" He nodded toward Sophia. "No. I am selfish enough to be grateful for circumstances that brought you to me, even knowing what it cost you. Honest, at least. Always, with you." His hand tightened on her hip. "You want different answer? Prettier lie?" "No?" Lena turned to face him fully. "I want the truth. Even when it's ugly." "Then truth is, I would do it again. Knowing everything, all the pain I caused, I would still bring you here. Because alternative is world where Sophia does not exist, where you and I do not exist, and I cannot—" He stopped, jaw working. "I cannot imagine that world anymore. Is too empty." Before Lena could respond, Sophia came running over, her face flushed with excitement. "Papa, Mama, come see! Dmitri's daughter knows how to cartwheel." They let themselves be dragged toward the demonstration, and Lena filed away Victor's admission for later examination. Because he was right, she couldn't imagine that other world either anymore. The one where she'd finished her gallery exhibition, gone home to her shabby apartment, continued her ordinary life. That Lena felt like a stranger now, someone who'd never been tested, never been broken and rebuilt, never discovered she had the capacity to adapt to things that should have destroyed her. The party wound down as the sun began to set. Children were collected by tired parents, the ponies loaded back into their trailer, the bouncy castle deflated and removed. Sophia crashed hard, asleep before they even got her upstairs, chocolate smeared on her face, and her new favorite stuffed animal clutched in small fists. "She had good birthday," Victor said, watching Lena clean Sophia's face with gentle swipes. "She had perfect birthday." Lena tucked the blanket around their daughter. "You're good at this. The father thing." "I try." Victor's hand found Sophia's hair, smoothed it back from her forehead. "Every day I try." They retreated to their own suite, both exhausted in the pleasant way that came from successful celebrations. Lena was brushing out her hair when Victor's phone rang, the specific ringtone that meant business, serious business. His face went carefully blank as he listened. "When?" A pause. "How many?" Another pause, longer. "I see. Yes. Send coordinates to Dmitri. I will be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call, and Lena saw the transformation happen in real time, family man Victor receding, crime lord Victor emerging like a shadow beneath skin. What happened? Shipment intercepted. Not by police, by Konstantin Volkov's people. Victor was already moving, pulling clothes from the closet with economical movements. He takes my cargo and 3 of my men. This is declaration of war. Lena's stomach dropped. Konstantin Volkov was a name she'd learned to recognize over the past 4 years. Ukrainian crime boss, ruthless even by Bratva standards, and someone Victor had been carefully avoiding direct conflict with, while executing his legitimacy plan. Can you negotiate? Negotiate? Victor's laugh was harsh. Volkov does not negotiate. He tests, he pushes. He sees if I am weak enough to accept theft without response. If I do nothing, I lose respect. Lose respect, lose control. Lose control. He didn't finish, but they both knew what happened to weak men in this world. Then what do you do? I respond. Victor strapped on his shoulder holster, checked his weapon with practiced efficiency. Overwhelming force, clear message. He takes 3 of my men, I take 6 of his. He steals 1 shipment, I destroy his primary warehouse. Escalation until he understands the cost of challenging me. And if he escalates back? Victor met her eyes, and for a moment she saw the fear beneath his controlled exterior. Then we prepare for war, and you and Sophia stay here, protected, while I handle it. Victor, no. He crossed to her, gripped her shoulders. This is not negotiable. You are kept safe, always, no matter what happens. He kissed her, hard, possessive, tasting like goodbye even though he was only leaving for a few hours. Then he was gone, and Lena was alone with the sound of cars starting in the courtyard and the knowledge that the piece they'd built was fragile as glass. She checked on Sophia 3 times that night, unable to sleep, unable to do anything but wait and imagine worst-case scenarios. When Victor finally returned at 4 in the morning, blood on his clothes and exhaustion carved into his face, Lena was waiting in their sitting room. Is it done? For now. Victor stripped off his shirt, revealed bruises forming across his ribs. Warehouse destroyed, 7 of his men dead. My men recovered. Message delivered. You're hurt. Is nothing. Volkov's enforcer got lucky shot. Victor moved to the bathroom, turned on the shower. But he is dead now, so his luck runs out. Lena followed him, watched him strip and step under the water, washing away blood and violence with the same methodical precision he applied to everything. She should have been horrified, should have been reminded of exactly who she'd married, what world she'd brought Sophia into. Instead, she found herself stepping into the shower with him, helping wash the blood from his back, her hands gentle on his bruises. You don't have to, Victor started. Shut up. Lena worked shampoo through his hair. This is what partnership means. You go handle the violence. I help you come back from it. This is not life you chose. Nothing about this life was what I chose. She turned him around, made him look at her. But it's mine now. You're mine. Sophia is mine. This whole complicated nightmare is mine. So yes, I choose to help you wash blood off after you commit murder. Because the alternative is pretending the violence doesn't exist. And that's how people break. Victor's hand found her face, water streaming over both of them. How are you so strong? Because you forced me to be. The truth was simple, brutal. You took a 20-year-old art student and threw her into hell, and I had 2 choices: shatter or become steel. I chose steel. She pressed her hand over his heart, felt it beating hard beneath her palm. You made me this, Victor. For better or worse, you made me someone who can stand beside you in this world. I am sorry. Don't. Lena cut him off. Don't apologize. Not anymore. We're past that. Way past that. She pulled him down, kissed him with 4 years of complicated history in it. Just be the man who comes home, who walks away from the violence and comes back to us. That's all I ask. They made love in the shower, desperate and urgent, both of them needing the affirmation that they were alive, together, surviving. And afterwards, wrapped in towels and clean sheets, Lena finally asked the question she'd been avoiding. What happens if Volkov doesn't back down? If this becomes real war? Victor was quiet for a long time. Then I send you and Sophia somewhere safe. Switzerland, maybe. Katya has house there, very secure. You stay until I finish this. No. Lena. No. She sat up, looked down at him. You don't get to ship us away like cargo. If this becomes war, we face it together, here, where I can actually know what's happening instead of sitting in some Swiss chalet imagining worst-case scenarios. You would risk Sophia. Sophia is safest here, surrounded by Dmitri and guards who would die for her. Moving her makes her vulnerable. Transit, new location, unfamiliar security. Lena's voice steadied. I've learned a lot in 4 years, Victor, including that running often gets you killed. We stay, we fight. Together. Victor studied her face for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Together. But if I say you go to safe room, you go. No argument. Deal. Over the following weeks, Volkov's response came in careful increments. Not war exactly, but not peace either. Shipments went missing. Deals fell through mysteriously. Lena recognized it as the kind of calculated harassment designed to drain resources and patience without triggering all-out conflict. Victor responded with equal calculation. Financial pressure on Volkov's legitimate businesses, careful redistribution of territory. A chess game played with lives and money, both men testing the other's limits. Sofia, oblivious to the undercurrents, continued being 3 years old with all the chaos that entailed. She started attending a small private school. Well, calling it school was generous. It was really a program for children of wealthy families, held in a heavily secured facility where Sofia learned numbers and letters, alongside kids whose parents were oligarchs, politicians, and yes, other Bratva members. Lena attended her first parent-teacher conference feeling absurdly normal, right up until she recognized two of the other mothers as wives of men Victor had mentioned in security briefings. They greeted her with careful smiles, the kind that acknowledged shared understanding of their world. "Your Sofia is very bright," the teacher said, a kind woman named Anna, who probably had no idea half her students came from criminal families. "But she can be assertive. She told Mikhail yesterday that her papa could buy his papa's house. I had to explain that was not appropriate conversation." Lena bit back a laugh. "I'll talk to her about it." She also defended Katerina from some boys who were teasing her. Anna's expression softened. Very protective of her friends. She said her mama taught her to punch noses if people don't listen to words. Lena paused. She had said something like that during a discussion about self-defense. "I'll clarify about when physical defense is appropriate." Driving home, Sofia chattering about her day from the back seat, Lena caught Dmitri's eye in the rearview mirror. The head of security's mouth twitched. "Something funny?" "Mikhail's father is arms dealer who insults everyone." Dmitri's English had improved considerably over 4 years. "Boy probably deserved to hear truth, and Katerina's mother will be grateful for protection. Her husband is," he paused diplomatically, "not kind man. So Sofia is already navigating Bratva politics at 3. Is in her blood." Dmitri's expression grew serious. "She will need these skills. Better she learn young, when stakes are low." That night, Victor came home early for once, and Lena was struck by how different he looked from the man who'd kidnapped her. Gray threaded through his dark hair now, and lines around his eyes spoke to years of stress and decision-making. But he moved with the same controlled grace, and when Sofia launched herself at him with a shriek of "Papa!" his face transformed with genuine joy. "How is my fierce girl?" He lifted her easily, even as she grew taller and heavier. "I punched Mikhail," Sofia announced proudly. "But just shoulder, not nose, like Mama said. Teacher said I must use words first." Victor's eyes found Lena's over Sofia's head, amused and questioning. "We're having a discussion about proportional response," Lena said. "Ah, important lesson." Victor set Sofia down. "Go wash hands for dinner. Mama and I need to talk." Once Sofia had run off, Victor pulled Lena close. "She punched someone. Mikhail Fedorov was being a little shit, apparently." Sofia defended a friend. Lena leaned into him. "I'm raising a tiny violent person." "You are raising strong person who protects those weaker. This is a good thing." Victor kissed the top of her head. "In our world, this is survival." "I know. I just..." Lena stopped, tried to articulate the complicated feeling. "I want her to be good. Not just strong, not just smart. Good, kind. The kind of person who uses violence only when absolutely necessary, not as first option." "Then we teach her this." Victor's hand found her face, tilted it up. "We show her that strength without mercy is cruelty, but mercy without strength is weakness. Balance. Like you. I'm not balanced. I'm barely holding it together most days." "You are strongest person I know." Victor's voice was fierce. "You survive me. Survive Chechens, survive this life, and you do it with grace and humanity intact. If Sophia becomes half the person you are, she will be extraordinary. The compliment settled warm in Lena's chest. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed, an international number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Lena? The voice was familiar and impossible. Lena, it's Mom. The floor tilted. Lena gripped the phone tighter, her eyes finding Victor's. Mom? She hadn't heard her mother's voice in 4 years. The supervised calls had stopped after Sophia's birth, Victor deeming them too risky. How are you? I know I'm not supposed to call. I know the rules Victor laid out. But honey, I'm sick. Her mother's voice cracked. Cancer, stage 3. The doctors say I have maybe a year, and I need to see you, to meet my granddaughter before... Where are you? Lena's voice came out strange, distant. Still in Arizona. I can come there wherever you are. Victor's people can arrange it, right? Please, Lena. I know I wasn't there for you. I know I failed you after the divorce, but please don't let me die without meeting her. Lena ended the call with shaking hands. Victor was already on his phone, speaking rapid Russian to someone. When he finished, his expression was grim. Is true. She has pancreatic cancer. Diagnosis confirmed 3 weeks ago. You already knew. I monitor her, always, for safety reasons. Victor's jaw was tight. I was waiting to see if she would reach out before I told you. And if she hadn't, you would have just, what, let me find out after she died? I would have told you in time to say goodbye. Victor closed the distance between them. But bringing her here is risk. She could be followed, could be compromised, could... She's dying. Lena's voice broke. She's my mother, and she's dying, and you're talking about security protocols. Because security keeps you alive. Victor's control cracked slightly. You think I want to be man who keeps dying mother from daughter? But I must think about Sophia, about you. The moment Lena Carter saw Victor Dragunov's eyes, cold, calculating, utterly merciless, she knew every assumption she'd made was catastrophically wrong. This wasn't some decrepit old man she could charm or deceive. This was a predator in his prime, and she was already caught. You'll carry my child within 6 months, he said, his accent turning the promise into a death sentence. Your father's debts die with your obedience. 20 years old, an ocean from home, surrounded by armed men, in a country where she didn't speak the language. Lena's ordinary life had just ended, and her nightmare was only beginning. If you're hooked, stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from, so I can see how far Lena's journey travels. The gallery opening had been perfect, almost offensively so. String lights casting warm amber across exposed brick, the scent of expensive wine and cheaper ambition, Lena's charcoal portraits finally getting the attention they deserved from people who mattered. She'd worn the black dress her roommate insisted made her look dangerous in a good way, and for 3 precious hours, she'd felt like someone who belonged in rooms like this. She should have known better. Her phone buzzed 7 times before she checked it. All from Dad. That alone sent ice through her chest. Her father never called anymore, not since the divorce, not since he'd chosen poker tables and loan sharks over parenting. The 8th call came as she stood on the gallery steps, cold November air cutting through her coat. Lena, his voice cracked. Baby girl, I need you to listen very carefully. Dad, I'm at an exhibition, my exhibition. Can this... They're coming for you. The words tumbled out fast, desperate. I fucked up. I fucked up so bad, and they said if I don't deliver you by midnight, they'll... A sound she'd never heard from her father before. A sob. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. The money was supposed to... What the hell are you talking about? Lena's hand tightened around her phone. Around them, gallery patrons laughed, oblivious. Who's coming? Russians. Ukrainians. I don't fucking know anymore. Her father's breathing came in sharp bursts. Victor Dragunov. That's the name they kept saying. He owns my debt now, and he doesn't want money, Lena. He wants... The black sedan pulled up so smoothly she almost didn't notice. 2 men emerged, moving with the kind of precision that screamed military training. Dark suits, darker expressions, and eyes that found her instantly in the small crowd. "Dad?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Dad, there are men. Don't run." Her father's voice broke completely. "Please don't run. They said if you run, they'll make it worse. Just go with them. Maybe he just wants to scare me. Maybe, Miss Carter." The accent was thick, Eastern European, the consonants hard enough to cut. The taller man stood 3 feet away, hands visible, unthreatening, except everything about him threatened. "Please come with us. Mr. Dragunov is waiting." Lena's art professor stood nearby, wine glass frozen halfway to his lips. "Lena, do you know these men?" Did she run? Did she scream? 18 years of self-defense classes her mother had insisted on said fight, but the shorter man's jacket hung open just enough to reveal the shoulder holster, and his eyes promised he wouldn't hesitate. "It's fine." The lie tasted like copper. "Family thing." "Your phone, Miss Carter." The tall one extended his hand. "Please." She looked at the device still pressed to her ear, her father's ragged breathing the only sound she could focus on. "Dad!" "I'm sorry." He was crying openly now. "I'm so goddamn sorry." The phone disappeared into the man's pocket. Then his hand, gentle, almost courteous, guided her elbow toward the sedan. The back door opened. Interior leather, tinted windows, and a third man behind the wheel who didn't even glance back. "If you scream," the tall one said conversationally as he slid in beside her, "we will sedate you. The flight is long. Better you stay conscious, yes? Less frightening." "Flight?" Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. "Where?" "Mr. Dragunov will explain." He buckled her seatbelt like she was a child. "Sit still. Behave. This goes easier." The gallery lights receded through the rear window. Her professor stood on the steps, phone already out, probably calling. Who? Campus security? The police? And what would she even tell them? That she'd been politely kidnapped by men who hadn't technically threatened her, whose employer she'd never heard of because of debts she didn't know existed? The sedan merged into traffic. Boston's November darkness swallowed them whole. "I'm a student." Lena forced the words past the panic squeezing her throat. "I don't have money. Whatever my father owes is not about money." The tall one, she mentally labeled him Sergei because he looked like a Sergei, pulled out a tablet. "Your father, he borrow very much, $200,000 for gambling, for..." He waved dismissively. "Does not matter, he cannot pay. Normal situation, we take his business, his house, his car. But your father?" A cold smile. "He has nothing worth taking, nothing except you." The tablet screen illuminated his face. A document, official-looking, dense with legal language she couldn't parse at this speed. But certain words jumped out. Marriage contract, Heir production, term, indefinite. "That's insane." Her laugh came out broken. "You can't just, people don't..." "In your country, no." Sergei swiped to another page. "In Mr. Dragunov's world. Different rules. Your father, he understand this when he borrow from Bratva. When you borrow from Brotherhood, you pay. Always. One way or another." The shorter man, built like a concrete block with dead eyes, spoke for the first time. "You paint, yes? We see your gallery. Very nice." His English was worse, slower. "Maybe Mr. Dragunov let you paint. He appreciate beauty." "Let me?" Lena's hands clenched in her lap. "You're talking about me like I'm a fucking pet." "Pet? No." Sergei shook his head. "Wife. Important distinction. Pet has no rights. Wife of Viktor Dragunov?" He made an expansive gesture. "You will have everything. Clothes, jewels, security, best doctors, best food. You make him son you want for nothing rest of your life. And if I refuse?" She already knew the answer, but she needed to hear it. "Cannot refuse." Sergei's tone remained pleasant, conversational. "This is not negotiation. Your father already signed papers. You are 20 years old, adult, but debt is transferred. You come willingly or you come sedated. You marry willingly or you marry drugged. You conceive willingly." He let that hang in the air like poison. "Better you understand now. Easier for everyone." The airport was private, corporate. No TSA, no crowds, just a sleek jet waiting on the tarmac with its stairs already deployed. Lena's legs felt disconnected from her body as Sergei guided her across the asphalt, the November wind cutting through her gallery dress like it was made of tissue paper. "I need to call someone." Her voice cracked. "My roommate will think you left exhibition early. We already sent text from your phone." Sergei showed her the screen. "Got sick, heading home." "Don't wait up," complete with the stupid flower emoji she always used. "Your professor also received message. You have family emergency, leave school for semester. Very sad, but necessary." They'd thought of everything, every escape route closed before she'd even known she needed one. The jet's interior was obscene. Cream leather, polished wood, a bar that probably cost more than her entire year's tuition. A woman in a crisp uniform stood waiting, her smile professional and empty. "Miss Carter will need something for nerves," Sergei told her in Russian. Lena's 2 semesters of language study were enough to catch that much. But nothing too strong. "Mr. Dragunov wants her alert on arrival." "I don't want—" Lena started, but the flight attendant was already preparing something, her movements practiced. "It's just Valium." Sergei pressed the pill into her palm, followed by water in a crystal glass. 10-hour flight. You want to arrive screaming, shaking, or calm, ready to meet your husband with dignity. Husband. The word felt like a noose. She took the pill. Not because she wanted to, but because the alternative, 10 hours of full panic, trapped at 30,000 feet with men who'd abducted her, seemed worse. The flight attendant's smile never wavered as Lena swallowed. "Good girl," Sergei said, and the condescension in those 2 words made her want to vomit. The jet lifted off smoothly. Boston disappeared beneath clouds, and with it, everything Lena had known. Her apartment with its paint-stained floors, her studio space at the university, the coffee shop where she worked weekends, the ordinary, beautiful, safe life she'd built for herself despite her father's implosion. Gone. The Valium hit her system like warm honey, dulling the sharp edges of terror into something more manageable. Sergei reclined his seat, closed his eyes. The concrete block scrolled through his phone with thick fingers, and Lena stared out the window at darkness, trying to remember everything she knew about Viktor Dragunov, which was nothing. The name meant nothing to her. "How old is he?" The words slurred slightly. "This Dragunov." Sergei didn't open his eyes. 36. Not the ancient, dying oligarch she desperately hoped for. 36. Young enough to have decades of control ahead of him. Old enough to be established, powerful, untouchable. "Why me?" The question came out small. "I'm nobody. If he's so powerful, he could have anyone." "He could." Sergei's mouth curved. "But transaction must balance. Your father owed debt. Debt must be paid. You are payment. Simple mathematics." "I'm a person." "Yes, person who now belonged to Viktor Dragunov." He finally opened his eyes, and for the first time, something almost like pity crossed his face. "You think this is worst thing that happened in world? You think you first woman married for debt, for alliance, for—" He searched for the word. "For purpose beyond love? This is old story, Miss Carter. Oldest story. You just modern chapter." The Valium pulled her down into something that wasn't quite sleep, wasn't quite consciousness. She dreamed in fragments, her father's voice breaking over the phone, the gallery lights receding, her own charcoal portrait staring at her with hollow eyes, judging her for walking into that sedan without fighting, without screaming, without... Turbulence jerked her awake. The cabin lights were dimmed. Sergei snored softly across the aisle. Outside the window, dawn light cut across clouds that stretched forever, and Lena realized she didn't even know what country she was flying toward. The flight attendant appeared with coffee, black and bitter. "We land in 40 minutes, Miss Carter. There are clothes in the bathroom. Mr. Dragunov sent your measurements ahead. Please change before arrival." Measurements. He already knew her measurements. The violation of it made her hands shake as she took the coffee. The bathroom was larger than her college dorm room had been. The clothes waiting, designer labels she recognized from magazines, sizes that fit perfectly, felt like a tailor-made cage. Silk blouse, tailored pants, leather boots that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She caught her reflection in the mirror. Pale, hollow-eyed, her careful gallery makeup now smudged and ruined. She looked like a ghost. The descent began. Sergei woke, straightened his tie, became all business again. When you meet Mr. Dragunov, you show respect. You do not raise voice. You do not make scene. He is patient, man, but patience has limits. Understand? Lena nodded, because what else could she do? The jet touched down smooth as butter. Through the window, she glimpsed mountains, snow-capped, massive, unfamiliar. Not American mountains. The architecture visible from the private terminal was all Eastern European elegance, cold and imposing. Where are we? Her voice came out hoarse. Home, Sergei said simply. You're home now. 3 more black sedans waited on the tarmac, men in suits, all cut from the same dangerous cloth. They surrounded her the moment she descended the stairs, not touching, but close enough that running was impossible. The morning air bit cold and sharp, so different from Boston's damp chill. The drive took 30 minutes through a city that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. If fairy tales included armed checkpoints and buildings that wore their Soviet past like scars, they climbed into hills where the architecture shifted, became older, grander. Estate walls topped with security cameras, gates that opened silently as they approached. And then, the house. Except house was too small a word. The estate sprawled across manicured grounds, all stone and severe elegance, windows that reflected the morning sun like watching eyes. The sedan stopped at marble steps. Sergei exited first, then offered his hand. Lena ignored it, climbing out on her own, her new boots clicking against stone. The front doors opened. A woman emerged first, 50s, steel-gray hair pulled back severely, wearing an expression that suggested she'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. She looked Lena over with the clinical assessment of someone appraising livestock. Adequate, she said in English. She'll need work, but adequate. Irina runs household, Sergei said. You do what she says, when she says? No exceptions. Irina's mouth twitched. Inside, Mr. Dragunov is waiting in his study. The interior was all dark wood and darker paintings, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself because it had existed for generations. Their footsteps echoed. Somewhere classical music played, something Russian, melancholic, beautiful in a way that made Lena's chest ache. They stopped before double doors. Irina knocked twice, then opened them without waiting for response. The study was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace large enough to stand in, windows overlooking grounds that seemed to stretch for miles. And behind a desk that looked carved from a single piece of mahogany, backlit by morning sun that turned him into a silhouette. Viktor Dragunov. He stood as she entered. Not ancient, not frail, not any of the desperate fantasies she'd constructed during that endless flight. 36 looked like this. Over 6 feet of lean muscle and perfect tailoring, dark hair cut military short, a face that would have been handsome if it wasn't so utterly cold, sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, and eyes, those eyes. Pale gray, almost silver in the morning light, and completely devoid of mercy. He studied her the way someone might study a newly acquired painting, assessing value, checking for damage, deciding where it would hang. Miss Carter. His English was perfect, the accent just barely detectable. Welcome. Lena's voice stuck in her throat. This was real. This was actually happening. This man, this stranger, expected her to, I won't do it. The words burst out before she could stop them. Whatever arrangement you made with my father, I'm a person, I have rights. You can't just... I can. Victor's tone remained pleasant, conversational. He moved around the desk with a predator's grace, closing the distance between them. Your father signed contracts witnessed by lawyers in 3 countries. Debt transference, acknowledged and accepted. You became collateral the moment he put pen to paper. That's human trafficking. Lena's hands clenched. I'll go to the police, Police? Something that might have been amusement flickered in those gray eyes. In this country, Miss Carter, I am the police. The judges, the prosecutors, the politicians, all of them owe their positions to men like me. You think your American citizenship matters here? He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could see the flecks of darker gray in his irises. You have no embassy to run to. No consulate that will touch this. Your father already reported you missing in Boston, filed a police report, very distraught, very concerned. And here you are, in a country with no extradition treaty, married, or about to be, to a man whose money built half this city. The room tilted. You planned this. Of course. Victor returned to his desk, poured vodka from a crystal decanter. I plan everything. Your father's debt came to my attention 6 months ago. I researched his assets, found nothing of value except... He raised his glass toward her. A daughter, 20 years old, healthy, educated, beautiful enough. No serious relationships, no family beyond a divorced mother who moved to Arizona and barely speaks to you. Perfect. For what? The question came out broken. I'm 36. Victor drank, his throat working. I've built an empire that spans 4 countries and generates billions annually. I have everything a man could want, except a legacy. My enemies are waiting for me to show weakness, to make mistakes. A man without family is vulnerable. A man with wife, with heir. He set down the glass. Untouchable. So buy a wife who wants this. Lena's voice shook. There are women who would come willingly. Victor's smile was a razor. Yes, hundreds. But willing wives have leverage, Miss Carter. Willing wives have families who expect influence, allies who want favors. Willing wives can divorce, can betray, can become liabilities. He moved toward her again, and this time she backed up until her shoulders hit the bookshelf. But you have nothing. No family that matters, no allies, no power. You are perfect precisely because you are powerless. The cruelty of it, the casual, calculated cruelty, stole her breath. You'll carry my child within 6 months. Victor's hand came up, and Lena flinched, but he only tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture almost tender. Medical examinations this afternoon will confirm your fertility. Legal contracts this evening will bind you. Wedding tomorrow, private ceremony, just witnesses. And then, his fingers trailed down her neck, not quite touching. You'll learn what it means to belong to me. I'll fight you. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused